Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee for the 5th of November. I am not Councillor Thompson. I'll talk about that in a bit. Would committee members please note where a decision is made on an agenda item to be able to participate in the debate and the vote, members must be present throughout the entirety of the committee's considerations for an item, including the officer's presentation and public speakers, and the question and the debate session. In the event that a member needs to leave the chamber briefly during the consideration of an item but still wishes to participate, the member should indicate to the chair that they need to be excused. If this is the case, the chair will briefly suspend the meeting for the duration of their absence. Can I remind members that mobile phones should not be used as a means of communication during the meeting, and if members need to make or receive a message via their phone, please alert me as chair. Where members are using tablets to access agenda papers electronically, please ensure that they are switched to aeroplane mode. Right. If it is required, we will be taking breaks during the meeting. When and how many will depend on how long our discussions take place for the agenda items. Thank you very much. With that, let's move to procedural business. Are any members in attendance as substitutes today? Councillor Pickett.
Councillor Pickett for Councillor Shanks even, sorry.
No worries, I think it's one of them days. Anyone else? No? Do any members wish to declare an interest in relation to any of the applications on today's agenda? Councillor Nan.
I don't have a financial interest in any of them, but on item A, I do have a kind of interest in it and probably would be considered predetermined, so I'll absent myself from that.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Amazing. In that case, we shall now consider whether, in view of the possible confidential nature of the business items proceedings, whether the press and public should be excused from the meeting. I can confirm there are no...
There's no part 2 items today, Chair. Thank you.
Amazing. Right, minutes of the previous meetings. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting we held on the 1st of October 2025? Agreed. Amazing. Right, Chair's communications are very short. So short that the microphone's already turned itself off for me. Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Thompson does send her apologies today. She's unfortunately been called to Scotland on a family emergency last minute, and I have stepped in to fill in for her for the day. Other than that, there is not much to report, and we will be getting straight on with this. So let's crack on. Public involvement. Do we have any questions, deputations, or petitions?
No, Councillor, we don't have any of those for this meeting. Thank you.
Amazing. Site visits. Do the committee members have a request for accompanied site visits to relation to any of the applications we will be considering today? No. Silence is golden. Amazing. The Democratic Services Officer will now read out the applications on the agenda and ask committee members if they want to discuss the items that are called. Please be aware that applications need to be called for discussions, not just for questions. All major items are automatically called. Sure.
Thank you, Chair. So as the Chair says, item A, which is a major, and that is BH 2025/01414, site of Sackville Road Trading Estate, is automatically called as it is a major and it does have speakers. So on to the minors. Item B, BH 2025/00877, 13 to 14 Sydney Street, Brighton, does have speakers, so that is called. Item C, BH 2025/01792 and BH 2025/01793 both have speakers, so they're automatically called, so that's C and D. Then E, which is BH 2025/01442 22A, Wilbury Crescent, Hove, has speakers, so that is automatically called. On to item F. BH 2025/01655, Corn Exchange, Church Street, Brighton, and item G, BH 2025/01654, Corn Exchange, and that is the planning application and the listed building consent. Do members wish to discuss these applications? Okay, thank you. And last item, item H, BH 2025/02245, 28 Herbert Road, Brighton. Do members wish to discuss this application? Thank you. So, Chair, just to clarify which ones have been called. So A as a major has been called. B, C, D and E are all called as they have speakers. F, G, H are not called, and therefore the case officer's recommendation is taken as agreed. And that means that the running order will remain as written in the agenda and the papers as A, B, C, D, E. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. With that out of the way, we shall move on to our first planning application, item A, BH 2025-01414, the Sackville Road Trading Estate Development.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. This is an application at site of Sackville Road Trading Estate, BH 2025-01414. The application description is the demolition of buildings and structures at land north of Hove Central Access Road to allow for redevelopment comprising of residential units with associated amenity provision, car and cycle parking, integrated public realm, vehicle access from the access road via Sackville Road and other necessary infrastructure. The application is for the demolition and redevelopment of the northern plot at Sackville Trading Estate for a residential scheme with buildings ranging from 5 to 10 stories. The scale, layout, height and design is closely related to the consented care community scheme approved under application BH 2019-03548, approved in August 2020, and it comprises of the following: 306 residential units, 40% affordable housing, with the expectation that the remainder of the housing would also be provided as affordable housing, subject to necessary grant funding, associated landscaping and public realm, and vehicle parking for 32 spaces, 23 for disabled and disabled visitors, 5 visitor, 3 car club bays and 1 loading bay, and in addition cycle parking for residents and vehicle access off Sackville Road. In terms of the consented scheme, this was a care community building, planning class C2, 5 to 9 stories, also approved on 6th of August 2020 under the larger Sackville development. It is an extant scheme, which means it could be built out at any time in the future. Comprises of 260 units, has communal facilities, include lounges, dining areas and healthcare facilities. It had undercroft parking for vehicles and cycles. This was for 74 spaces, which were for disabled occupiers, staff and visitors, with landscaped areas and communal landscape areas as well. So just getting onto the site in question, this is the existing location plan in red. Here's an aerial photo of the site. So you've got Sackville Road here and Old Shoreham Road to the north, and the Moda scheme, which is being built out to the south. That's another aerial photo of the site. So it's these eight sheds which are to be demolished and redeveloped. Here's just some images along Sackville Road. So these are the existing buildings on the eastern side of Sackville Road. This is the site entrance, which you can see the new Hove Central scheme on the right-hand side there. This is a view north up Sackville Road. This is the Sackville Road junction to the north of the site. This is a view west inside the site, showing the existing commercial buildings, and that's the houses of Sackville Road in the background there. This is a view north from within the site, showing the existing buildings. So this is a view from outside the site to the north, from the Furniture Village car park, which views across the site and towards the Hove Central development in the background. This is the existing bus lay-by adjacent to the site, and where the secondary entrance to the new scheme will be around this sort of location here. This is another view of the main boulevard within the Hove Central scheme, and this is the southern entrance of the Hove Central scheme, which has been built out. So this just shows a master plan of the consented planning application, which was approved back in August 2020. So you can see the south of the site has all been built out, and it's this northern parcel, which was for the care community, which hasn't been built out as of yet. Again, this is a master plan of the consented scheme, and this is the proposed scheme is very similar in terms of its scale and layout. This is a visual of the consented scheme on the entrance to the wider site. This shows the ground floor of the consented scheme. Yes, one of the main differences was the consented scheme had undercroft car park, which is here, and then had the development and the landscaped area built on top. As you can see there, so the landscaped area is built on top with the buildings around, and then you had, because it was a care community, a lot of the lower ground and ground floor parts were for the communal facilities like lounges, etc., and reception and gyms, etc. So moving on to the proposed scheme. So the proposed scheme has a very similar layout. Obviously, it's not care community, so it hasn't got any communal facilities. All the built form is made up of residential flats. There isn't an undercroft car park. So this is the car park here at ground floor level, with also some car parking around the side, and you've got a landscaped area here and another landscaped area in the western courtyard. This just shows the proposed elevation from the north. The red line depicts the consented scheme. So some parts of it are slightly lower. A couple of towers are slightly taller, but almost identical. There are areas which are 10 stories rather than 9 stories in the consented scheme, because they've altered the floor to ceiling heights in some places. This is a view from the south elevation of the site. This is the east elevation, and this is the west elevation, which fronts Sackville Road. This is some of the typical elevation detail. So you've got two separate types of bricks, and then a sort of a agey detailing on the balcony. And here's a contextual elevation from Sackville Road. So this is the secondary exit into the western courtyard, and the main entrance is off Sackville Road down here. So just going to some of the floor plans, you've got the landscaping at ground floor level and the car parking, and unlike the consented care home, you have got flats at ground floor level along here, and also here as well, where it was the communal facilities in the care home. Just getting onto the upper ground floor, and then the first floor is very similar to the consensus scheme. Obviously, the layouts of flats and the sizes are somewhat different. Another thing which is a difference between the care home scheme and the proposed scheme is a lot more of the units now have private balconies. So all but 7 of the units have private balconies, which was not the case on the consensus scheme, which had a lot less. And now we get onto the 6th floor. So these are the 4 towers. In terms of landscaping, there's going to be 64 new trees, which replace seven existing trees, which are largely on the Sackville frontage. The ARB team assessed the trees that were to be removed as generally not in great condition, and they were satisfied with the loss of the trees. This is the hard landscaping plan, which has a road that goes around here, around to the back. Just put in the presentation some typical flat layouts. You've got one here for a 2-bed and a single bed. All the flats either hit or exceed the minimum space standards. I've just got another 2-bed 4-person and a 3-bed 5-person. In terms of the material palette, it's primarily this grey brick here with secondary brick and a base brick, so there's a fair amount of variety in the scheme. And this is just an artist's impression from the south, with the car parking and the landscaping there. And this is from the Sackville junction opposite Pointer Road. And this is the secondary access of Sackville Road, enters the Western Courtyard. This slide here shows the car parking and the cycle stores. The cycle stores are in red and parking in yellow. This shows the refuse and recycling strategy. There's bin stores here, on the side, and then in the dark colours here. The refuse truck will come up here and collect from here, around from here, and then around to the north and collect from this bin store. There's also a collection point in the bus lay-by, which I'll go to later, which is somewhat unsatisfactory. The reason being, in terms of building regs, there wasn't the carry distances to allow for additional bin stores further in the south of the site, so the carry distances and the levels. So yes, we have got this situation where there will be a number of collections. Probably about 18% of the collections will be undertaken in the bus lane. In terms of the representations, there have been 8 letters of support, including from Peter Carl and a representation from Councillor O'Quinn. All the details of those are in the officer report. Again, there have been 9 objections for various reasons, including from Councillor Begin. And again, all these are set out in the officer report. In terms of the key considerations, the principle of the C3 housing is considered acceptable, as there is no requirement for a care community in the site-specific policy SSA4, and the provision of housing is welcomed as a significant benefit of the scheme, which will house a much higher number of occupants overall. The proposal does provide a good housing mix overall for a large-scale flatted development on a brownfield site, and it has 64% either 2 or 3 bedroom units, and this is considered an improvement in mix over the consented scheme, which was largely going to be single occupancy. The 40% affordable housing with the potential for more in a compliant mix is a significant public benefit and does weigh strongly in favour of the scheme. The scale, height and massing of the scheme is comparable to the consented scheme, and as such there will be no material difference in impacts on neighbours in respect of any loss of light, privacy or any enclosing or overbearing impact. And although there will be an intensification of the use, it is not considered to be of a level which will result in any significant harm in terms of any increased noise and disturbance over and above the consented scheme. A number of revisions have been made over the life of the application to improve the daylighting, and although some flats on the lower levels are still poor in this regard, it is noted that the addition of private balconies on all but seven of the units is a significant improvement over and above the consented scheme. Any deficiencies in the standard of accommodation must also be weighed against the significant benefits of the delivery of a high-density, affordable housing scheme on an allocated brownfield site. The overall design approach is very similar to the extant scheme and would have an acceptable impact on the appearance and character of the area and the setting of nearby heritage assets. Stringent conditions on materials and detailing are proposed to ensure a high-quality finish is secured. In terms of highways, there will be a significant uplift in cycling and pedestrian movements, and as such, a contribution towards a scheme of improvements to the Sackville Road junction has been secured by obligation. Limited parking has been provided on site, and this is predominantly for disabled users. It is noted that there will be some level of overspill parking in neighbouring streets. A robust travel plan promoting sustainable travel is to be secured by condition to help mitigate this impact. The proposal for refuse collection in the bus lay-by, whilst unsatisfactory, is not considered to result in a significant highway safety risk, and as such has been agreed in principle. And whilst some concerns remain in respect of the permeability of the scheme, overspill parking and access, the local highways authority does not object, subject to the proposed conditions and obligations. The proposal is considered acceptable in respect of sustainability, biodiversity, ecology, land contamination, air quality and flood risk, subject to the suggested conditions. In terms of the Section 106 obligations, so we are securing in the agreement the affordable housing. We're securing 2 street trees on Sackville Road opposite the site. We're securing a contribution of 200,000 towards a scheme of junction improvements at the top of Sackville Road, as well as some other highway works. And we are also securing an employment scheme and various fees for monitoring. In terms of the conclusion and the planning balance, it must be noted that the council is currently unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply. As such, the relevant planning policies relating to housing delivery are considered to be out of date, and the tilted balance of paragraph 11 must be applied, and this sets out that planning permission should be granted unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The proposal is considered acceptable in design terms. It's very similar to the consented scheme and would not significantly harm the appearance or character of the area. Although some negative highway impacts remain, this is a low-carbon proposal which strongly aligns with the sustainable transport aims for the city, and subject to necessary obligations and conditions, this scheme is acceptable in this regard. The standard of accommodation is considered acceptable overall, and must also be weighed in the context of the need to maximise housing delivery, including affordable housing on a brownfield site allocated in policies DA6 and SSA4, and also in relation to policy DM19. Impacts on neighbouring properties will not be materially different from those of the consented care community scheme, and the proposal is acceptable in this regard. The proposed CP housing is acceptable in principle and will provide a significant uplift in housing numbers over and above the consented care community use. The proposed affordable housing provides a significant public benefit over and above the consented scheme and weighs strongly in favour of the scheme. Overall, the benefits of the scheme, which includes the provision of affordable housing on an allocated site, significantly outweigh any negative aspects of the scheme identified. And overall, the proposed development will make a significant contribution towards sustainable development in the city, and thus complies with the NPPF and contributes towards meeting the objectives of City Plan 1 and 2, and approval of planning permission is therefore recommended, subject to completion of a Section 106 agreement and conditions recommended. Thank you. Just before I finish, just a couple of verbal updates since the latest was closed. We've had another objection to the scheme, which I did actually add into there. So that's 9 objections, but it hasn't raised any new points that haven't been raised before and discussed in the report. And in terms of conditions, the condition number 3, which is for the SEMP, we are proposing to vary the trigger to remove demolition. So and then we have received a demolition environment and management plan, which was received last Friday, which we consider acceptable, and we will add that as a compliance condition. So there'll be a new condition which will be at the end, number 36, and it will be to comply with the DEMP, and that will cover the demolition of the building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers on this item from the public. The first is the Ward Councillor for Westing and Hove Park. Oh, sorry, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. When the papers were circulated, I did ask for a more legible room plans, as it were. When will they be forthcoming? Should we look at those now, or should we look at those under questions to you?
I think it's probably best you address those to Chris in the questions. We'd included those in the presentation, hopefully at a larger scale, to make those a little more legible. Okay, in which case then it's probably best to form a part of discussion when you get to that moment.
Thank you. We've now got two representations. The first is for the Ward Council for the neighbouring ward of Westdean and Hove Park from Ward Councillor Begin. Samir, are you joining us online?
I am joining you online, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. I know you've spoken
Excellent.
before, so I won't spend too long to remind you of the rules, but you'll have 3 minutes from when you start speaking, and I'll get a 30-second countdown reminder for you as well, and your own time.
Fantastic. Lovely. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officers for the excellent presentation. I have one core concern, and I hope it's come through the documents. I don't believe it's similar in every respect to the previously consented scheme. That I disagree on. I think the infrastructure demands of what's being put, but I leave that to your judgment and that of the officers to look at. Now, while we all recognize the need for growth, responsible development must be matched by adequate infrastructure. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the current proposals do enough in order to mitigate the impact of the development against a number of critical areas. Highways and transport were cited, utilities and healthcare. Now, I'm quite confident that we can work together to ensure that growth and the scheme actually benefits everybody now and in the future. But we must demand responsible, sustainable planning from the outset, not one that creates problem for residents and neighbours down the line. So I'm proposing a number of conditions to be added to the consent if granted, in addition to the substantial number of conditions, I think, outlined by the officers. I think that the conditions will ensure that the new homes are adequately serviced and that the development's impact on existing infrastructure is mitigated. The first one on transport and highways, I believe we need something stronger than what's being proposed. I believe that we need a Grampian-style condition that prohibits occupation until all of the improvements off-site, including the Sackville Road junction, have been completed by the developer. I think that's a must. On community infrastructure, we've heard about refuse and recycling. I think we need something that tells us exactly what the storage facilities that are included on the site are going to be like, because the last thing we want is a substantial number of flats, very different to a care community, suddenly going and queuing in order to reach the tip just around the corner. The third one is on healthcare. And I think the condition could say something like this, which is no more than 250 dwellings occupied until a GP surgery has been constructed on site and made available for occupation by a medical practitioner to ensure that adequate primary care facilities are provided for the needs of this development and for Hove Central in accordance with the City Plan 1 and 2 and the MPPF. We've had a substantial number of units added to the area
30 seconds.
With nothing by way of medical provision, including a GP practice. Thank you very much. I will stop there.
Thank you very much. We also have in person the applicant and the agent for this. So I'd now invite Sarah and Benjamin, is it? I'll let you introduce yourselves to take their place. First of all, welcome to the Planning Committee. Same as with Councillor Begin, you will have 3 minutes whenever you start talking, and you'll get a 30-second reminder. Start by pressing the right-hand button on your speaker.
Got it. Thank you, Chair. Your officer's report highlights the significant public benefits of the proposals. The applicant has worked hard and collaboratively with officers from across the council, and there are no objections from statutory consultees, including highways, noise, air quality and drainage. This site is in a highly sustainable location, suitable for a car-free development. The scale and massing broadly align with the previously consented care community use, which ensured the quality of that scheme was retained to complement the Hove Central neighbourhood whilst minimising planning risk to enable grant funding timescales to be achieved. The proposals accord with local plan policies for new residential development on this brownfield site and would deliver substantial public benefit as made clear in the officer's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Sarah Poulter from Hyde, representing Homes for the City of Brighton and Hove LLP, a 50-50 joint venture between Hyde Housing Association and the Council, established in 2017 to address a serious shortfall in the delivery of affordable housing in the city. The LLP has successfully delivered 2 developments totalling 346 affordable homes, and this is the 3rd project to come forward. A contract has been entered, conditional on securing planning permission, to acquire the application site at Moda Hove Central for the delivery of 306 affordable homes. Should the application be approved today, the intention is for the development to be delivered as 100% affordable, in excess of the 40% policy requirement secured through the 106 agreement, with 183 homes for council rent and 123 for shared ownership, subject to confirmation of Homes England grant funding. The timing to claim the grant funding is critical and does not allow for any delays. If the key milestones are missed, the development may not come forward as 100% affordable or will be significantly delayed. The housing affordability crisis in the city is stark, with 5,000 live applications on the housing register, 2,100 households in temporary accommodation, and 1 in 77 people in the city experiencing homelessness, with 1/3 of those being children. The proposals provide desperately needed and genuinely affordable council rented housing to up to 620 of those residents, and low-cost home ownership to up to 394 residents, including essential workers, in a high-value area of the city. The development is critical to delivering both city plan housing targets and the ambition in the city's housing strategy to deliver at least 2,000 affordable homes by 2029. The application would add to the existing affordable housing and other public benefits already provided at the Hove Central neighbourhood as part of a truly mixed-use approach, and would help to deliver the council's aspiration of an inclusive and fairer city. I would urge members to support the recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifications wanting to be given by the officers?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to cover a few things that have already been raised there. The development is still rated, nil still rated, so in terms of still contributions, which is obviously necessary to bring the development forward and make it viable. Most of the conditions are pre-occupation to make sure that we have the recycling and refuse storage facilities implemented before occupation, so they are already worded in that respect. And just in addition, obviously we're here to determine the application that's before us. This doesn't include a GP surgery, and that is not considered to be necessary to make this development acceptable in planning terms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now turn to member questions. Does any member of the committee have any questions? Councillor Earthy.
Oh, okay, thanks. Just a question about the one of the conditions about sustainability in transport. Can you just run through that again? It's towards the end of your presentation. You said there was a condition I think the applicant had to meet. Otherwise, I'll do it from memory. I mean, it was something, because obviously we have a low car policy, which means if people who want to travel, they've got to do it other than by car. But we don't own the bus company, so we're rather the hostage to the bus company, putting in enough bus capacity to make us low car. And I just wondered if that was a reasonable request to make of the developer.
Sorry, Councillor, are you able to reframe the question itself?
Yeah, that was great. Can you clarify what that sustainable requirement of transport is? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't quite sure what condition you're referring to. I think you're referring to the travel plan condition. So yes, there will be incentives in there, such as like reduced price bus tickets, cycle, car club membership, or the barrel bike membership, and the applicant will have to do a travel plan which is reviewed and agreed by the council, it will have other incentives as well, but it's to encourage active travel in the area.
Councillor Pickett, do you want to add in on that?
Sorry, I hope this is adding on. I understand we've got the travel plan, but my question is kind of related to, and sorry if I'm going ahead of you, the highways. So I know that there was a request to have conditions regarding the highways. Is that still a condition, and will that happen before or after we've approved this? Sorry, after it's been built.
Are you talking about contribution or obligation or condition?
The condition is that the scheme of highways works will be mitigated to make sure that the impact on the area, there is no impact on the area. So what I'm asking is, will that condition, do we have that condition in place already, or will that happen afterwards?
Yeah, I think you're talking about the highways obligation. So we've got obligation for the applicant to provide a contribution of 200,000, which will go towards the modelling and testing of a scheme and the provision of a scheme for improvements of the Sackville junction. And if there's any money left over, it will go towards partial implementation. We've not asked them to design and implement a whole scheme for the junction, because that may end up being far higher sum, which would not be proportional for the scheme. Yeah, so they look at the highways junction improvement overall, maybe over £1 million or something like that, or maybe I'm just talking about ballpark figure. So we're not asking them to design and implement all the changes. We've just asked them to implement and design and test and model a scheme which can be implemented in the future. The highways have got this junction in one of their plans to upgrade in the future. They just haven't got the funding at the moment, but this will help that if they can get a scheme which is ready to go and get funding towards.
Sorry, so just to clarify, so the money that you're getting from this scheme will not be used to remodel that junction?
It will be used to formulate a plan, to test it, to model it, and potentially, if there's any money left over, will be go towards the implementation. If there's any money left over, but it won't be to actually implement the scheme. No, it won't stretch that far.
That's also just for the point of clarification there. So yes, so the Section 106 agreement is going to secure the financial contribution towards improving that junction between Sackville Road and the Old Shoreham Road. The key element of that is to support safe cycling and bus movements. There is a bike share hub safeguarding to make sure that the bike share hubs are provided. That's going to be secured through the Section 106. Car club bays within the site are also there to be secured with the 106 agreement. And then there's a further part of the Section 106, which is then going to refer to some slight improvements and alterations to the bus lane area where that bus stop is, in order to allow for safe refuse collection whilst the bus stop is also being operated.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions. Some of them may be more relevant to officers, so I'll start with the ones that I know are definitely to the developers. So most of us have big concerns about the lack of parking. So I'd like you, please, to explain explain the reasons why this development's gone from 260 properties with parking spaces. Can't see how many parking spaces there were before, now to 306 with none. And then I'll come back with some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there were a number of reasons why the Undercroft car park was taken out of the scheme. Critically, it would have resulted in a loss of a minimum of 16 homes. There were other reasons as well. So now there's multiple fire safety technical requirements that would have had to be achieved. Firefighting access, additional staircases and space, lifts and ramps and sprinkler tanks. And EV charge point requirements now need greater fire resistance and separation space, meaning that the number of spaces achievable would have been significantly lower than that was in the consented scheme. There would be a significant increase in build cost due to the need for the podium of about £4.5 million, which would have had a huge financial impact on the scheme. And there is a benefit to having the landscaped area at ground level. It improves disabled access for users and visual and physical connectivity between the south and the north schemes. It was broadly supported by local resident groups during consultation due to the reduced traffic and improved air quality, and the highly sustainable location of the scheme means that it's, with good transport connections, we felt made it suitable for a car-free development.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson?
Do I continue? Okay, then please stop me then if I'm asking questions that should be to officers. So, who will can I give you 2 or 3 at a time so it's a bit quicker? Who will maintain the gardens? Condition 16 talks about the gardens being maintained but not by who. Condition 12 talks about metering. I presume each property is going to have its own meter. Condition 17 about PV panels. Where does that electricity go? Does it get sold to the grid? And if it's sold to the grid, who keeps the money? Sam's got something to say, and I've got some other things that are more about some of the conditions that are currently in the application don't seem appropriate, particularly from Transport and Highways. But shall I come back on that directly to you?
Shall we let some other people go around first?
Yeah, all right, okay.
I'm just going to ask the officers to jump in very quickly to answer about enforcement conditions, and then I'll come to you to answer those specifically.
I'll just say, when it comes to condition compliance, it's ultimately the owners of the sites and the freeholders would be those that would be responsible for ensuring the implementation and ongoing maintenance and remediation of any conditions that are required. So that's the stuff that's done sort of, post-occupation, if that helps at all.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. Yes, in terms of the maintenance, the intention is that the freehold of the land will be retained by Hyde, and the council will have a long leasehold ownership of the rented units. So Hyde, as freeholder and as the housing association, would be responsible for maintaining the gardens. I'll come back to the second one. The PV panels, the intention is that those would feed the individual units. So the power from those would directly benefit the residents and reduce their bills. It would go towards the heating and hot water demand. Sorry. Of course, yeah. The question about PV panels, those would feed the individual units. So the residents would directly benefit from the renewable energy that's provided by those.
Can you explain exactly how that works in practice? How does each of those 260 units benefit from that?
Yes, the PV panels all directly have inverters connected to the individual homes. So historically, on schemes, the PV panels have powered the communal supply, but the technical requirements, which I'm not able to go into here, but the individual homes will benefit from the PV panel supply.
Thank you. Councillor Parrott.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, is that okay? So my first question is actually about loading bays. I'd like to know why there's only one loading bay, because if we've got approximately 560 people living in this, there's 300 odd units, and if they're at full occupancy, that'd be around 560 odd people. One loading bay for 560 people, given today's predilection for ordering online and having deliveries, and also given that we don't have any car parking spaces, means that will have an intensity of people ordering, shopping, etc. to be delivered. One loading bay doesn't seem very much, so I wanted to know about that. My other question actually is about parking as well. It's actually about the disabled bays. We've got 23 disabled bays, which is approximately 4%, unless I've got my maths completely wrong. And if we look at the fact that there's normally across the UK, you would expect in social housing probably about 25%, between 20 and 25% of people living in social housing to be disabled. That doesn't seem like very many disabled bays for a social housing project.
I was just going to say, just in terms of the affordable housing, I mean the disabled bays for affordable housing, it is hitting the requirement of 5% overall for the scheme, and that's in our planning policy.
Shall I answer the question on the loading bay? We do also have our highways consultant available who might want to add to this, but the analysis undertaken indicated that the lay-by was sufficient throughout the day, and that there was a low chance of multiple vehicle deliveries causing a problem there. We have included 3 dedicated mail rooms within the scheme, which should facilitate quicker delivery of parcels. Tom Fisher is available online if he's got anything to add to that.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Can everyone hear me all right just before I start?
Loud and clear.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, just to add on that, we have undertaken a trip generation exercise for the delivery and servicing vehicles, which can be found in our transport assessment addendum. What Sarah said is correct, and the analysis that we've done shows that there is a low chance of 2 vehicles ever having to access the loading bay at any one time. In the peak hours, you're looking at sort of 2 servicing vehicles, which is reduced in terms of the time that they dwell in the servicing bays because of the three rooms that are allocated for the mail and parcels. I think as well, in the context of the location of the development site and the fact that it is a highly sustainable area, you have got local shops, local supermarkets, local amenities that were reduce that likelihood that people will have to order absolutely everything online.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in there and ask a question following that myself, Tom. So, because obviously we've talked to us about the refuse collection, and I imagine we'll talk more in a minute about the refuse collection and the use of the bus stop. Do you foresee any chance that the bus stop's going to get used as a second delivery bay if a second delivery driver turns up and they can't get into the delivery bay itself?
So through the 106, there is an obligation to secure a traffic regulation order, which will essentially stop that from occurring and can be enforced if a delivery vehicle were to wait there.
Thank you. Councillor Theobald.
Thank you. I've got a number of questions actually. Well, my first one's a comment that regarding the infrastructure, in the last plan there was a health plan there, so it's a shame it's not in this one because you've got over 500 extra people. The Southern Water have objected, the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioners objected, the Brighton Hove buses objected, mainly because the refuge in the bay for the refuse going in the bus lane. I wanted to ask, was there any communal space, like a meeting room or anything there? And the ward councillor said about the light penetration into some of the lower floors. Has this been dealt with? And finally, the 200,000 for the Sackville Junction. Is there a plan for this? Can we actually see what's happening to it? Because if it's going to be taken up by a bicycle lane and a bus lane, is it going to slow the traffic up? You know, is the cars not going to be able to get through? Just wanted to know if there's any more details about that as well. Thank you.
I'll try and take those, maybe not in the same order. In terms of the objections, yes, we have had an objection from Brighton Hove buses. That's just an in principle objection because I don't think they would like to see any deliveries in the bus lanes. Refuse collections. I mean, in the bus lanes, but we have set out in the report. Yet there has been a road safety audit of the principle of it, and it was considered that there was not a highway safety risk. So although unsatisfactory, there's no highway safety risk, and we are securing a highways scheme for it, and that hopefully will be able to mitigate it as far as possible. In terms of Southern Water, yes, they have objected to this in terms of they said that we haven't provided enough land contamination information up front. What we have said is it's the same scheme in terms of the scale and layout as the consented scheme, and the consented scheme had no additional requirement for additional information and could be built out at any time. So we said it would be unreasonable to require an updated geotechnical report prior to determination of the application, but we do still have stringent land contamination conditions, and we will get further information by condition. We've also got a condition that there shall be no piling or any deep foundation works without further information and an agreement by the LPA. And we've also had no objection from the Environment Agency, who are the custodians of the water, and we will consult the EA and Southern Water in that land contamination condition. In terms of police infrastructure, you might recall that they actually also objected and asked for a contribution on the original scheme. We've looked at this and we just don't think it meets the tests of an obligation to make the scheme acceptable. Funding for police cameras, which aren't that close to site, was just not deemed to be necessary to make the scheme acceptable, and should be sought under other means. So we haven't requested that a contribution for the police. The lights. Again, the lights. So this scheme, obviously, it's got some flats on the lower levels where before there was undercroft car parking, or there was some communal space, so that it is lowered down, so it will understandably get less light. The other thing is they've added in this scheme a private amenity in the form of a balcony on almost every flat, and when you have a balcony over flat, it does reduce the light going into the flat, so you get the benefit of the balcony, but you sometimes get the disbenefit of it impacting on the light. So we've had to weigh that up in the mix. During the application, the applicant has altered a lot of the layouts, which has actually improved the daylighting. It's ensured all the 3-bedroom layouts are all dual aspect now, and it has improved the daylighting. So we've got an improved scheme. It's not perfect, but we have to put that in the planning balance. And if you are developing high density brownfield sites and to get a deliverable scheme, we consider that the public benefits of that outweigh a limited number of units with poorer daylight. The community space, obviously the scheme before was a care community. So the community space was really for the occupiers of that development, and not necessarily for external people. Although they may have an opportunity to use it, we have discussed with the applicant about if they could put a larger community space into the building, but I think it was also considered that the deliverability of the scheme, a bit like the fact that they can't provide additional parking for undercover parking, it would just hit the viability of the scheme. And if you end up having a community space which knocks out a number of the residential units, it would impact the scheme. And I think we didn't have a specific planning policy requirement for community space. Yes, although it would have been a benefit, it wasn't something that we could necessarily refuse a scheme on or demand. Yeah.
Can I just ask, so there's no actual plan for us to see about this junction exactly, although
The issue with that is that it's just too early in the process to be able to identify exactly what those junction improvements are going to be. Clearly, obviously, they are meant to be improvements. So obviously, we've said that obviously there will be an increase in traffic over the year. So it's to make sure that obviously there is better free-flowing traffic, as well as referred to earlier, as well as to allow the buses and the cycles to be able to operate safely within that. So as far as I understand, it's too early in the process to identify exactly what those junction improvements are going to be.
I would just there is a longer term plan in the LC whip, but I will just pass you quickly over to Alistair, who will be able to who will be able to update you from our highways team.
Yeah, hi. Pretty much to back up what they said. Active Travel England statutory consultee did propose some cyclist improvements, and the applicant drew that out. So that could be looked at, but it was thought that, as you said, that would likely constrain traffic movements, bus movements through the junction. So we couldn't just accept the scheme and put it on the ground without first modelling it. And before you even do that, you need to go out and do surveys, do traffic counts, and see what you're dealing with. So there's quite a long process, and believe it or not, the entire contribution will go towards the design, really. So it's going out, doing preliminary design and data collection, then it's working out your options, and then it's modelling and simulating those options. Then you appraise between the different options you've got, and then you get to an outline design, which I think is what you're after, looking at, can we see the drawing? But yeah, that's stage 5 of the design process.
Thank you. Councillor Cattell.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, this question for the applicant, maybe. On the site plan, there are cars, there's some spaces that say CP. Are they the car club spaces? Oh, great, thank you. Now, what I wanted to ask, and I know we've got people from Moda here, was there a similar travel plan for Moda, and has it been successful? Yeah.
Councillor Cattell, yes, it's been very successful. We have a very detailed travel plan. We have an agreement with Enterprise. We have an agreement with Beryl Bikes. They've proved very successful with our residents who are currently living at Hove Central. So they're incentivised with the travel plan, going back to some of the questions over there. First residents benefit from financial contributions, both to bus and rail tickets and pricing, worth nearly £500 for each of those. We have car club spaces. We have 2 cars on site as part of the car club. So it's proved to be very successful. These are discussions that we've had with Hyde as part of the JV with you as the council, and we see those flowing very neatly through the rest of Hove Central.
Very quickly, can I have your name, please, sir?
I'm on the list. It's James Blakey.
Thank you.
Thanks. So it's a similar sort of type of travel plan.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Now, the other question I was going to ask is the mail room, which I've just found on the drawings. How is that going to work in practical terms? I mean, if I was living there and I'd had some things delivered, do I have a special code to get in there, or how does it work? And again, is there something similar in Moda?
Yes, there's 3 dedicated mail rooms. There's 2 in the rented side and 1 in the shared ownership side. The residents of the particular cores that are connected to that would have fob access to the mail room. In terms of the detailed management arrangements for it, we haven't got to that level of detailed design, but it would be worked up and agreed with the council at a later stage.
Sounds like a good idea for something like this. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
Thanks. Sorry, my question is still going back to the bus lane. Have the buses agreed to the shared use of the bus lane with the refuse trucks?
Ultimately, it's not for the bus to agree. It's the local highway authority owns the road. So the highway works will be agreed by the local highway authority. That's my understanding.
So our officers assured then that this is going to really work? Because that's what I'm really worried about.
In terms of the collections, they're only expected 3 a week because there's one for ordinary waste, one for glass, and one for recycling. So that's the expectation at the moment, and they are normally undertaken earlier in the day. I think as we put in the report, it's not particularly satisfactory arrangement, but it's been tested with a road traffic audit, and it's shown not to be like a safety risk, and it's considered in principle it will work. Yeah.
Thank you, because I was just worried that we're going to end up with a bus lay-by with refuse containers sort of in the road and things like that. That won't happen.
The truck will pull up. The men will go in and get the bins, offload them, put them in the truck, and then the truck will move away. Yeah.
Can I just offer a point of clarification on that as well? Is that so as well as the road safety audit showing that the use of that would be safe, the Section 106 agreement, as part of that, the highways team are negotiating proposed to negotiate a TRO to maybe also require that that those refuse collections are time restricted, so are not just allowed to occur at any time of the day, but if necessary to keep those to the early part of the day or to the latter part of the day, whichever is going to be the most operable.
That sounds great, but my point is, so are those refuse bins going to be permanently in the bus lay-by?
The bins will be in bin stores in the development, so they're just the operative for statistically will go and get the bins from inside the development. But they're not going to be sat on the highway. I can bring up the
Just going to find a plan. As part of the presentation, he did show the locations of where those refuse stores were on the site, and Chris is just going to bring that up for you now. Oh, I see. Okay, sure. We'll point that out to you.
You see that, yeah. So you got a bin store here, and you got a bin store here, and that is the bus lay-by. The bus lay-by is large enough for you to fit 2 buses on, but the drop curb will be in the lower end of the bus lay-by in the south. So refuse truck will pull up, and they go in and get the bins from here and here. And drive off. All the rest of the bins will be collected from the site. So we're talking, I can find the exact percentage, but it's less than 20% of the bins for the development as a whole are going to be collected in the lay-by. The vast majority will be collected from this point here, this bin store here, this bin store here, and this bin store here, and the truck will go up and come back round.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions now, kind of relating to highways. So I spent some time reading the second highways report yesterday, and there were 2 particular points. The first one related really to pedestrians and cyclists, and that's I probably can't pronounce the word properly, permeability through the site, i.e. it seemed like, from what I was reading, like there was no permeability, i.e. the ability to get from inside that development to some kind of cut through to get to, or is it Aldi or Lidl, whatever the big supermarket is. So can that somehow be dealt with by condition? Do you want to answer that one, then I come with the second?
Yes. Just answer that first point. As you're aware, this site is a landlocked site. What we have done by obligation is we've got obligation for a permissive path, so which means the public will be able to go and walk right around the site. So if there is any development on the outside for the east of the site, which are those commercial units, or the north, there will be the potential for a route through. But at the moment, because the site owner does not own the land, just the north or the east, there just isn't really a way through. It's sort of out of their gift at the moment. But yeah, in the future, if those are developed, it will be expected that there could be a route through. Yeah.
Next question then. So again, and it's good that Alistair's here because maybe a conversation needs to be had. There's some concern about the travel plan and how it's not really included some overspill in its baseline assumptions and does not set out ambitious measures to mitigate. So the recommendation was that the travel plan, a new travel plan is is produced, and that the new travel plan is what the condition will be based on, rather than the one that's been provided so far?
Yes. So the applicant submitted a travel plan with their application, but we didn't consider this travel plan was sufficient to be conditioned as it was. So the application is proposing a condition for a whole new travel plan, which will have to be submitted and agreed prior to occupation. Yes, we're not using the travel plan that was submitted by the applicant with the application.
Will that new travel plan give any consideration to what the situation would be if and when a CPZ, controlled parking zone, is implemented here? Thank you.
The travel plan will be to mitigate the impacts of this specific development. So it will be looking at how this scheme can become as sustainable as possible, with incentives for cycling, pedestrians and public transport. What happens outside this in the future into the CPZs, I guess, is not really particularly relevant to that particular condition, because it's not something that it can mitigate, because we're not getting any more cars or car parking probably in this specific site.
It's the overspill that worries me. It's the residents in the rest of Westbourne and Perrett's Corner that concern me, and this development. We mentioned essential workers. Well, essential workers who are carers or perhaps work for our own council doing household repairs. They need vehicles. Where are they going to put those vehicles? And it's just, is there some kind of informatory that we can add, or something to be sure that the public are aware that we're thinking about this? We're not just going to let a whole, 200 new cars be flooded into the streets of the surrounding streets.
I think in terms of overspill, the applicant has done a robust parking beat survey, and it has indicated that there is actually quite a lot of capacity on the streets around, albeit in like a 15-minute walk from the site. I think talking about what may happen in the future in terms of CPZs, either in this site or outside, is not something we can really, look at when we're actually deciding this application. I think when we look at this application, I think we just got to look at what's there on the ground at the moment, and not what may or may not happen in the future in terms of CPZs.
And just one little small clarification, which is that I believe Poets Corner and Westbourne is already a CPZ, but I appreciate that the concern is perhaps is the other areas that aren't. But just to clarify that, Poets Corner and Westbourne is mostly a CPZ.
Councillor Parrott.
Just with regards to Westbourne and Poets Corner particularly, of course, doesn't actually stop people parking there. They take their risk on parking fines, I guess, is what I would say. I actually wanted to ask about the question regarding access to health amenities. Has there been some work done on access? Have we got spare capacity? Because, I don't know the last time anyone here just tried to get a doctor's appointment. but it's not an easy thing to do at the best of times, and we've got capacity problems already. Again, we're adding another 500-600 people into a very stretched service, and because of the needs of social housing, often that correlates with higher than average GP healthcare use. So particularly, and I know that obviously we'll be providing good quality housing, so that's one of the normally key drivers for visits to GPs. But on the other hand, we're still looking at people living often with other difficulties, other issues. So they are more likely to be accessing GP services. And so I'm concerned, and I just wonder, has there been an impact assessment done on the local GP surgeries, which, around those areas?
What I would say is there's no specific policy in this site location to have a doctor surgery or such. The funding for these sort of things sits outside the planning remit, really.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Earthy.
This is a question for the developer, really. So I'm going to cross into Councillor Robinson's questions about solar panels. The profile of this development is large enough to have a community energy scheme in its own right. So with your solar panels, is the idea that the output from the panels will be divvied up amongst all the residents, split amongst them? Or is it a case that only the apartments with solar panels on their roofs will keep the energy? Or so how's it going to work? I mean, to me personally, I think a fairer way of doing it, given the profile, is that the panels are owned by the community. The surplus goes to the residents. Any surplus after that goes to the community battery. And then any surplus after that is sold to the grid with the proceeds divvied up. So I just want to know what your plans were.
We did look at including a kind of communal system on site, and with a company called Synergy, but established that there wasn't sufficient space to do one. The power will be divided up between all of the units, so every unit will benefit. It's not just one panel linked to one apartment and everyone else doesn't get any. That's the extent of the strategy. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more questions? No, in that case, thank you very much to all our public speakers. We shall now move on to the debate. So who would like to kick us off? Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I came past that way recently, and I must admit it does look rather a shabby area with all those sheds. But I was hoping this design would be an improvement. It is an improvement, but it does look rather drab, I think. In fact, that whole area looks now more like New York or Legoland, I call it, because the housing comes in sort of blocks, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the other thing was it's a shame the undergraft parking is not included, as there will be probably overspill with the parking on the streets. It's also a shame there's not any healthcare provision at all for all these people. They've got to try and find it somewhere. I was hoping the proposed Sackville Junction won't slow up the cars. I'm just thinking you're going to put in big cycle lanes and things. It's going to reduce the amount. It's not a wide road, so it's going to be very difficult. And that junction has been done time and time again. The council, I could have thought the councils could have been some community space there. But having said that, I'm very pleased that it's for affordable use. And I do hope that means affordable, and that it will be really, will provide for a lot of people that really need this housing. So, so I will be voting for this scheme. So I think it's good, apart from all the other things that I think hopefully will be sorted out. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I'll just jump in. Obviously, the way I've been talking, I think everybody's got the measure that I'm a little bit concerned about lack of parking. I think it's almost like an equalities issue where where we're saying, okay, this is social housing, but if you know, and we want everybody should be working, but if you've got a job that requires a car for you either to get to work or to do your job, you don't come and live here. I think that's not particularly good. I don't like the fact that there's lack of any of community space. The GP surgery thing is a much broader thing, but we do need the housing, and all I can say is us on the planning committee, we need to work with officers to get see what we can do to change. I don't know if that's in the city plan, Matthew. This the scenario where the provision of community space is not a planning requirement. What can we do about that for the future? I'm particularly thinking of, you know, the mass regeneration that's going to be happening soon in Whitehawk, and how we need to be sure that when we're designing big, when we're doing big place-making pieces of work like that over there, we need more. We need more for the community. But we need the housing, and we need the social housing. So I will be voting for it, but yeah, not particularly happy, but I will. Thank you.
Councillor Pickett.
Thank you. I have to disagree with Councillor Theobald. I actually think the design's quite good. It's not particularly high-rise. It's quite low-rise, considering how many people are living there, and the size of the flats are pretty good. I would suggest, though, that the ecological enhancements could have gone a bit further. You know, there was a suggestion about a green roof, for example, or something like that. That would have been amazing. There is the issue of the parking. That is, it's unfortunate that we couldn't continue with the underground, because that would have been amazing. And yeah, I agree with Councillor Earthy about the solar panels. It would have been good if they could have done a community energy scheme. Thank you. But yeah, all in all, I think. Oh, and the refuse. I'm really not happy about certain parts of the refuse collection. That just seems a bit sort of added on. But in all respects, I think this is a good plan, and that we should vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Winder.
Thank you. We do need the housing, and this scheme is not all bad, but it just feels like it could have been so much better. And also the public realm improvements are very basic. They haven't really been incorporated within the design sufficiently to make it a real living place for the people who are going to move into these apartments and spaces. So it just feels a little bit disappointing, but there's no question that we do need the housing, and so I probably will be voting for it.
Thank you. Councillor Earthy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll be voting for it too. I share all the concerns of Councillor Winder, Robinson and Councillor Pickett. I do have concerns, but I'm not going to repeat them. I just stress I think we do need to work with officers in the future, as Councillor Robinson said. But I do also want to see possibly some more work put into public transport in that area. I've heard that buses can be crowded during rush hour times. And so to dump another, 200 or 300 people potentially on those routes could be quite bad. I just regret the fact we can't control the bus company, but I think we're going to need to work with them very closely, because a low car policy works in both directions. So if you want to make it low car, it's going to be high capacity somewhere else. So if we can work, I will be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parrott.
I'll be voting for this because we need the housing. However, I just do want to express my disappointment that we continually use words like we've met the minimum requirement. This is a city that's progressive and inclusive, and I think that, you know, actually, I think that should come through sometimes. And I think to keep meeting just the minimum requirement is maybe not, you know, doesn't fill me with joy.
Thank you. I'll just cap a debate. I just want to stress that we talk about the lack of parking, which is definitely a problem, and I definitely share members' concerns about the about losing that underground parking lot. But I would like to point out, I reckon the majority of people who will be moving into this development probably live within the city already have cars. So I don't want to use shuffling deck chairs analogy because it's not quite appropriate in this situation for me, but I do think we are moving people who are probably living at home or living in car spaces without driveways at the moment into this development. We aren't actually, I don't think we'll be making the problem much worse, we'll just be shifting where the problem is. And so I get, it is a shame to lose that parking space, but I don't think it'll make the problem worse. And also, I think everyone's already mentioned that losing some of the points in this development is a massive shame, losing community spaces, losing community assets, especially when this has been labelled as an enhancement for the people of Central Hove. Not having any community assets in there is massively disappointing. To quote Councillor Parrott, we shouldn't just be aiming to hit the minimums. So I think what this has done for us as members is exposed some holes that we probably need to work to fill in the upcoming city plan. And I think something we all need to work with officers on to make sure that when the new city plan comes into place with the new planning laws, that we can hit the ground running and actually have in the city plan what we want to see for the future of our city. So with that in mind, I will be voting for this, despite my disappointment on it. So, if there is nobody else to debate, I shall now put the recommendation of the officers to approve this Section 106 agreement to the vote. All those in favour?
That's unanimously agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, as we have been going for about 90 minutes already, I'm going to propose a little 5-10 minute break, let everyone toilet, refresh water, and we shall reconvene at 22. Sorry for the delay. We will now be turning to item B, BH 2025-0877, 13 to 14 Sydney Street, Brighton.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. So this is in respect of number 13 to 40 Sydney Street. It's BH 2025-00877. And the application is for erection of an additional storey roof to create a 3-bedroom flat, which is C3, alterations to the front facade, including 2 first-floor bay windows, replacement shop front with new commercial and residential access, pitched roof with parapet, and creation of a second-floor roof terrace with privacy screening surrounding it. So the application itself is in the North Lane area, so between Tidy Street, you can see over to the left. Existing location plan. And then this is the aerial photo of the site, and you can see that this shows it's a relatively modern addition. It's a 2-storey, it's got a flat roof, and it extends significantly further than quite a lot of the other properties in Sydney Street at the moment. A bit more of a view of it now, so you can see it's quite a modern 1960s addition. And this is the front elevation at the moment. So it's operating as commercial property, and it's a coffee house at present on the ground and first floor. And then this gives you an idea of the built form in Sydney Street for those who haven't been down there recently. So the site itself is on the right-hand side, and then we're looking south towards the sea. And you can see here it's predominantly Victorian heritage buildings, and they're mostly 2-storey when you look in this view. And then here we're looking towards the north, so up towards South Downs. And here you can see that there's a lot more variance in the architectural form in the street itself. So you've got 3 stories, 2 stories, and then there's more modern infills towards the end, which you can't really see down here. And then obviously you can see the tall blocks in the distance. And then this just gives you a context of the site. This has been produced by the applicant. So you can see here the 3-storey buildings and or higher are highlighted in purple. And as you can see from those photos to the south, there's not really anything apart from one isolated building in the street that's more than 2 stories. And then as you head north, there's significantly more. This is the block plan and the proposed hatched. So I'm not sure if you can make it out particularly well here, but there's not really any immediate or garden space at the rear of the red line. There's just a small sort of alleyway area which they use for storage, etc. And then the newer area that's going to be put on top is set significantly back from the rear elevation wall, as you can see. And then this is what's proposed, so creation of 1 new 3C dwelling in the second floor, and the retention of the existing commercial use at ground and first floor, but there will be a small loss of commercial floor space just to create the new stairwells and the new entrance going up to the new C3 property at second floor. So existing floor plans, you can see the small courtyard at the rear and the existing commercial premises, and then the flat roof. And then this is what's proposed. So small alterations to the ground and first floor, creating the stairwell access up to the new C3, and there's a new shop front created. And up on the second floor plan, you can see that there's going to be a new C3 unit created in there, 3 bedrooms, and there's a small private terrace to the rear, which is surrounded by privacy screening. You can see there that the additional floor is set back from the elevation of the existing floors. And existing proposed roof plan, just to give you a bit more detail, so it's partly pitched and then partly flat roof. So pitched at the front, so it replicates the existing properties that are 3 stories as you look to the north, and then flat to the rear. And this gives you a bit more detail of it, so it probably makes it a lot easier to understand. So you can see at the top, we've got the existing section, so it's just a rectangular box. And then on top of that, we're now going to be putting the C3 unit, which is set back. You can see bed 3 to the rear, bed 2 to the front, and then the landing stairwell going through, and then a new pitched roof put on top with a flat roof to the rear. And then that small rectangular section at the rear is the new screening for what would be the private terrace for the residential unit. And then there's also a lot of drawing dotted lines on there which show the current sight lines of people in Tidy Street. So they're the properties to the rear, they're rear elevations, and what the proposed would do in effect to those views and all their sight lines.
So you can see there's some significant changes for the ones who are at second floor on Tidy Street, less significant for the ones at first floor, and then the ground floor, the views aren't significantly altered from the existing building form to what's proposed. This is what we're looking at the moment. So the existing building on the left-hand side, it's, as I say, a modern addition to the conservation area. It doesn't particularly add anything to it, and in some instances it detracts from it because of the flat roof design against the two pitched roofs to either side. And this is what's now proposed. So it's complete renovation of the elevation to the front. It then creates the appearance of two new shop fronts there, which match in with the existing rows of shop fronts as they run along, rather than having a big double fronted shop front at the moment. Two new bay windows created at first floor, and then new timber sash windows put across on top of it. There'll be a new slate roof put on top, which is going to be pitched, as you saw in the side elevation. And the materials that we're looking at here will all be matching in with the existing vernacular of the heritage buildings there. So we're looking at things like line-based render or timber framing. I'll come on to it a bit later, but the shop front will have a lot of detailing in respect to the fascia, the cornicing, the corbels, and in respect to pilasters and various other things like that. And it has store risers at the bottom. And then this is to the rear. So as you can see, it's quite an open at the moment, and it's just a flat roof running across. And then the rear becomes quite articulated because you've got, in this area here, I'm not sure if you can see my pointer, but you've got the terrace here with the privacy screening around it, and then the flat roof, and then it raises up to the twin pitched roof on top of it. Existing proposed side elevations give you an idea of the increase in bulk. So here, that's really where the main bulk comes out to the rear. And obviously, it raises up. This is a 3-storey property to the north. So in the context of that, it's going to be set slightly lower with a lower ridge and lower roof line overall. And then shop front design. So it gives a few more details. Can't read all the detail on it, but as I said before, it's going to create the appearance of two new shop fronts, which matches in better with the existing shop front design down the street. And then there's a lot of information there about how the windows and it will look, but it's going to have a lot of the detailing that's present on a lot of the heritage shop fronts already down there, rather than at the moment it's a very plain fascia with no other detailing around it. So these are all going to be, it's all going to be timber painted. You're going to have cornices, corbelling, pilasters running across here, matching it with the existing design in the shop front. Representations, we've had 18, including the North Lane Conservation Area, objecting to the proposal, and they're predominantly on the basis of amenity impacts, so noise, smells, loss of view, overshadowing, and loss of light. Design, so the height of the proposed building, and that it harms the conservation area and is out of keeping. And the current operator of the commercial unit, their communication interaction with local residents hasn't been to the highest standards and has been found lacking by some of them. And Councillor Clee has objected to the proposal in relation to the amenity and design impacts, and her representation is attached to the report. Heritage impacts, key considerations for us as the LPA are heritage impacts on the conservation area, amenity impacts for the future residents and surrounding residents, and design. And on balance, we feel that the existing building detracts from the conservation area. The proposed would have improved front elevations and shop front designs that take design cues from the existing heritage buildings in the street, improve the appearance of the building in the conservation area. And heritage officers have been involved in this design from the pre-application advice stage. This has gone through 2 rounds of pre-application advice and seen significant changes from what was originally occurred, taking into account comments from myself and also from the heritage officer, Colin Bannon. Colin Bannon is also part of this meeting, so if you have any questions for him, you can ask when it gets to that stage. The proposed event would have suitable accommodation for future residents, so we've looked at the standard of accommodation that we proposed, and we think it meets the standards that we would expect. The amenity impacts for surrounding residents are not considered so significant that refusal is warranted, subject to the recommended conditions. That's not to say we don't think there will be any impacts, but we think the impacts are acceptable. And the design is considered appropriate considering the context of the site, appearance in the public realm, and the improvements to the front elevation. So, on balance, and taking into account the housing shortfall situation in the city, the positive impacts of the scheme are considered to outweigh the negative impacts. and recommendation is to approve. And as I said, Colin Bannon is online if you have any questions for him as well. He's a heritage officer who's been involved in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have 3 sets of public speakers. The first are 2 residents from the community, Hugo Butterworth and Zoe Robinson. If I'd like to both take your seats. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, can you make sure we get a copy over here, please?
Yes.
These ones for people here.
Can I?
Right, good afternoon. Just to quickly run you through the rules again. If you use the right-hand button on your speaker when you're ready to talk, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. And take it away in your own time. Thank you for coming.
I'm Hugo Butterworth of 19 Tidy Street, representing Fiona Buckley, who lives at 40 Tidy Street and is the owner of the property immediately behind this proposed development, and one of the many residents to be directly affected. This proposal for mass overdevelopment is not in keeping with the conservation parameters to protect the area's special architectural and historical interest, with the goal of preserving or enhancing its character. The existing 2-storey flat roof extension is already a significantly larger mass than the other buildings in Sydney Street, which are predominantly single-storey to the rear, with courtyards or gardens adjacent to similar gardens or courtyards to the rear of Tidy Street. The proposed 3-storey with a pitched roof encroaches significantly further towards the rear boundary with Tidy Street. This will result in an oppressively tall, blank wall looming over the back gardens and facade of 38, 39 and 40 Tidy Street. The residents will be left with a below minimum daylighting requirement and lack of privacy, as there is also a proposed roof terrace that will look down upon our living area, our families and our gardens. This development is a gross overstepping of the checks and balances which have protected North Lane for many years. This marks a critical moment, and if permitted, the development will set a dangerous precedent to encourage the mass overdevelopment of other buildings and properties. The entire landscape of North Lane could drastically change as a result.
I'm Zoe Robinson, representing Caroline Moreland of 39 Tidy Street, which is also my home. I have 4 main points to make. The first is North Lane is dominated by back-to-back terraced houses, sometimes with commercial or retail use at street level and featuring small extensions to the rear. The proposal is to erect a 3-storey structure with pitched roof to within 4 feet of the rear boundary wall, which is unprecedented in the conservation area. Secondly, the pair of 3-storey houses in their position should not be used as a precedent. These existing Sydney Street buildings match the scale of similar buildings on adjacent streets which climb the hill towards the station. Thirdly, there will be a significant and irreversible obstruction of views. Houses on Tidy Street currently have unobstructed views from the first floor and loft rooms over the current 2-storey flat roof. The proposal will present residents with a sheer faceless wall and roof. Finally, the scale and massing of the development is inappropriate and will dwarf the modest 2-storey houses on Tidy Street. The red rooftop outline on the handout shows the sheer size and bulk of the proposal, which will significantly reduce light and make the rooms and gardens significantly darker and gloomy. In summary, I believe the scale of the proposed development is completely disproportionate, overbearing and out of keeping with characteristics of the conservation area. While steps have been taken to enhance the front elevation to improve the appearance of Sydney Street, this is being achieved at significant detriment to neighbours either side and behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have joining us online the Ward Councillor for West Hill and North Lane, Councillor Ellen McClay. Ellen, are you online with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Same again, you have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Thank you, and thanks for showing all of those illustrations and photos earlier. I'm hoping that everyone in the room today who is has the responsibility of making a decision on this has also reviewed some of the objection letters and photos that were shared on the portal, because this really does help show the perspectives from neighbours who will be most affected by this proposal. I'm speaking today to support the objections made by local residents to the proposed development on Sydney Street. While improvements to the shop front may offer some aesthetic benefits, this application raises serious concerns about scale, character, amenity within the North Lane conservation area. The development is out of scale and character, and the North Lane is defined by its low-rise nature and balanced streetscape. This proposal adds an extra story and creates a 3-bedroom flat, pushing the building to 3 stories and extending almost to the rear boundary. This is inconsistent with the smaller scale terraces in the area, and the conservation officer has judged the harm as less than substantial, but this scheme would seem to exploit the already inappropriate flat roof extension to justify further overdevelopment. Its massing and proximity to the boundary will dominate the views from Tidy Street and set a precedence for similar extensions in the area. The applicant cites other 3-story buildings as a precedent. However, these examples form part of a consistent pattern on the hill, which was referenced earlier. And whereas this proposal introduces height and bulk where none exists on to the south, it will disrupt the southward view down Sydney Street, undermining the council's statutory duty to preserve and enhance the conservation area. Resident neighbours in their objections have expressed that the scale and massing are visually overbearing. The red line drawings comparing the proposed building to its neighbours illustrate how disproportionate this development is and will overshadow adjoining properties. I would also like to just raise awareness about one of the documents from the Acoustic South East, saying that there were no complaints made by residents about the smells and noise in the area. I would say that I am very aware of complaints that have been made over the last year or two about the environmental issues in this area. And I would encourage the committee to refuse this application based on the what I've said earlier. And if they are going to approve it, to please also bear in mind that there is a condition to prohibiting short-term letting, which has been a cause for significant disruption elsewhere in the North Lane. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We now turn to our last speaker on this item, Nick Strickland, who is the agent for the applicant. Nick, are you online?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you. In case you haven't figured out the pattern by now, you'll have 3 minutes to speak when you start speaking. Take it away in your own time, please.
Okay, well, I just wanted to underline some of the points, but much is reiterating the officer support and also the support of the various consultees. Since our first pre-application engagement back in February, we've worked really closely with the planning and conservation teams to bring this proposal forward. Collectively, we considered that there was a great opportunity to significantly alter a building which is currently incongruous within the setting of Sydney Street, being double-fronted, flat-roofed and with oversized window and door apertures, whilst also creating a new city centre dwelling. So our proposal seeks to restore features which prevail in the conservation area setting and returning the building to 2 distinct bays and bringing back a consistency which has been lost. That includes traditional sash windows, parapet cresting, shop front with corbel brackets and traditional fascias and store risers. The proposal will add density, which we consider to be befitting to our city status. It brings, life to the city centre to sustain central amenities and business. With a westerly oriented patio and good natural lighting and a little oversized for the space standards, the proposal also creates a good quality accommodation for future occupiers. In detail, the cross-section through the proposal shows the setback from the rear of the existing building. we are not creating a new development within 4 feet of the rear boundary. We are creating a new rooftop extension that is well set back from that existing building mass. And that has been considered with a full daylight appraisal, which was part of the submission. And obviously the officers can tell you more about that. Lastly, the pitch roof, which we've proposed, matches the depth and pitch of historic properties along Sydney Street in terms of its dimensions and geometry, albeit that it is a story higher, which matches 2 doors up and diagonally opposite rather than those properties to the south. So in conclusion, we believe this design has been carefully considered to provide a new, much needed dwelling and uses the opportunity to restore a missing fragment of the conservation area setting in terms of its design and detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifications from officers on items raised?
Yeah, thanks, Jed. Just to go through a few points that raised, and I think Nick has just covered one of them, but in respect of encroachment, well, the new application with the new story is set back from the existing rear elevation of the property, and currently the rear elevation is about 7.5 metres from the rear elevations of Tidy Street. The proposal is set back further, so it's ranging between 9 and 10 metres, depending where. 9 metres in respect of the proposed screening for the terrace, and then 10 metres for the new elevation that's been created at the second storey. So they're set back from what is the existing situation is. But I understand what the residents' concerns they have in respect of that. The screening, the terrace, there won't be any overlooking from the terrace because there will be proposed screening, and there's condition that that proposed screening, the details of that needs to be given to us and agreed. In respect of the views, yes, it's acknowledged by officers and in the report that there will be some loss of views, but views aren't protected, they're not a material consideration in respect of the determination of the planning application. And what we have assessed is whether we think that the outlook would be so significantly affected that it would be harmful to the residents, and we don't think, and that was probably shown on the side elevation, on the side section, we don't think that the loss of outlook is so significant that we would justify refusal. So there will be a loss of views, there will be some loss of outlook. We don't think it's that significant that it would justify refusal. In respect of the noise and the smells that are being produced from the existing commercial unit, yes, it is an existing commercial unit, it is lawful. It got previous approval for the flues. I know there have been investigations in the past in respect to noise complaints about noise and smells. All of that has been fully investigated and assessed by the environmental health officer who's been involved in this application. During the process of the application, they have requested further information and they've got clarity on what they wanted. And in relation to the development overall, they are satisfied with what is actually now proposed. In respect of the amenity impacts, and that if there were still issues in respect of noise and smells being produced by the new flue, because the flue will now be higher than the existing flue, obviously it needs to sit on top of the new roof, then they would still be able to take any action they needed to under the Environmental Protection Act, if necessary, but they are satisfied with the application that's actually before us. I think that was it. Was there anything else, Matthew or Chair?
No, just the condition that's recommended.
Oh yeah, and sorry, the condition in respect of putting on there something in respect to short-term lets. Honestly, maybe Matthew, have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. There is, so yes, so condition to restrict it so that it could not be used for short-term lets. Exclusive use of a property for short-term letting would take it outside of the existing C3 use class, so that would require planning permission itself. There are circumstances where you could use a property for a certain amount of time for short-term letting, not the entirety of the time. So I don't think it would be unreasonable for, if councillors wanted it, to recommend a condition to require it to retain use for C3 use only and for no other purpose, including holiday lets and short-term letting. That's possible.
Thank you. We'll now turn to questions, starting with Councillor Cattell.
Thank you very much, Chair. I found what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Theobald.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, how many 3 stories are actually in that part of Sydney Street? Did you say there's two doors away and the one opposite or something? And I couldn't really see a clear picture of the actual frontage to see what it looked like with the 3-story and then a 2-story next door.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'll bring up the slide and we can have a look through those and hopefully they will. So which elevation was it you were looking for, Councillor? Yeah, so this one is gives context of the existing 3 stories that are in the area. Is that helpful? So the ones in purple, as you head towards the north of the plan, or they show the ones that are 3-story at the moment, and you can see it in the little inset picture as well. To the south, they're on the street itself, yet they're very infrequent. You just have the one down further south on the eastern side of the street. And then these are the existing and proposed floor plans. This is the elevation, front elevation of what's proposed. So existing elevation on the left-hand side. So you can see it's got the big fascia, the big windows. They're out of keeping and detract from the conservation area. It's a relatively blank facade. And then what's proposed is on the right-hand side. So that's a 3-story on top of there with the pitched roof. And then you've obviously got the bay windows at the first floor. You've got the new timber sash windows at the second floor. And then on the ground floor, you then get the new shop front created that has the appearance of 2 shop fronts, which matches into the existing formula spacing of the shops that run down in Sydney Street. And obviously it's a lot more detailed, that shop front, or those shop fronts, than the existing one, which is relatively blank. Does that help? Zoom in. Maybe. Not really, no.
Councillor, would it help if we were to expand the image so that it was just, if it was larger, would that help? Yeah, okay, we'll just try and do that for you. Hold on a second.
Sorry, bear with me. I'm just bringing up the other one. What's happened? Yeah, I can't bring it up.
Do you see it right now? Okay, that's right.
Yeah, fantastic. Is that a bit better for you? And I can go down to the shop front as well, which can give you a bit more detail of what's proposed on the shop front as well, if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Urphy.
Sorry, I don't know if it's material or not. What's the origin of the current building? Is it an old Victorian thing that's been converted into that and then they're going to convert it even more? Or do they flatten the original Victorian properties, build that thing in the 60s, and now we're being asked to approve another floor? I'm just curious about the conservation history of that plot.
Yeah, I don't have the exact history of it, of exactly what happened, but from the being inside and also from the numerous discussions we've had over the last 2 years about the site itself, it would appear that what they did is they took down 2 of the existing Victorian properties, or heritage properties, and then erected that in its stead. And that's certainly the appearance when you go internally, and that's the appearance when you look at it externally. even if that wasn't the case and there was still some remnants left of it, that you can't see any of that visually whatsoever. There's nothing internally or nothing externally that has any, to my view, shows anything of any original building which may have been of a very early date. So it would appear to be 1950s, 1960s.
Does that mean a precedent has already been set by the fact that decisions were made back in the 60s, or?
A precedent in what sense? Because
So I think some of the objections are about setting a precedent in go down that road with more 3 stories, but it seems that 2 of those original properties have already been got rid of, and that so it's almost like it's encroaching down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only reason that we're recommending this is because we consider that the existing building significantly detracts from the appearance of the conservation area at the moment. And doing this, we end up with a new unit, which is good from a housing supply perspective, and also we have something which we think, at the very least, it enhances, but how much it enhances the conservation area, but it will certainly improve it significantly over the existing. If anything else was to come forward, well, we'd have to go through that same planning balance. So it wouldn't open up the floodgates to everything being converted into 3-story down there or 2-story, because each one would be judged on its merits, and the majority of the existing buildings down there have significant enhancements to the conservation area currently. To make them 3 stories, well, a lot of them wouldn't be making any significant improvements, and some of them may detract from it.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
Can I just add to that question first of all? So, if that building as it is now was an application went in for it the way it's in terms of how far back it is, would that be acceptable now?
I can't prejudge any other application, but if we had an application for one of the 2-story properties down there at the moment, which has one of the pitched roof, which adds to the conservation area, and then they wanted to create a rear extension which would be matching what's existing on this property, more than likely it would be refused for the impacts it would have on the neighbours and also potentially on the conservation area.
Can I ask you then to just give us a bit more guidance on the guidelines in terms of light at the back? Sorry, and the impact on neighbours at the back.
Of course. There's the applicant submitted, and it was part of the pre-application process. We reiterated quite strongly that we need to make sure that the amenity impacts on the neighbours to the rear particularly were reduced as far as they could be to a level which would be acceptable to us. So as part of the application, they did a full assessment of the properties to the rear. They did a laser scans of all those properties, and they assessed all of the windows, and then they did a light assessment, a daylight and sunlight report in relation to the impacts on the properties there. And they have assessed it all on the BRE guidelines, and the BRE guidelines that they've assessed it against said that there won't be any significant impact on the neighbours to the rear. There will be some rooms which would lose some of their daylight at certain points, but assessed against the BRE guidelines, the amount of loss would be acceptable, and that's what the report shows. And that's been assessed again by the Environmental Health Officer. In respect of the amenity impacts, I think I touched on that briefly. Well, yes, there will be some loss of view. The outlook that remains, well, there will be some small loss of outlook to some of the properties, definitely, but we don't think that loss of outlook is so significant that we could justify refusal. In terms of overlooking, well, with the proposed terrace and the screen that's going to go around it, again, we don't think that there will be any overlooking. There's no other new windows being created at the rear elevation, apart from those ones which we serve in the residential unit, which face directly onto the roof terrace, and that roof terrace has screening around it. There are some new conservation-style roof lights which are putting up in the rear roof elevation as part of the pitch, but they're going to be so far above the actual residential accommodation that all they'll be affording is sky views. So, yes, I can see why there will definitely be some impacts on the neighbours to the rear, but we don't think that under the policy and assessments that we've made, that any of those would be so significant they could justify refusal, taking into account all of the improvements to the conservation area and the provision of the new residential unit as well. So we have assessed it all quite thoroughly, and it's been over the period of not just this application, but all the pre-applications before us as well.
If I may just provide just a couple of bits, just to expand on what Steve was just saying, that firstly, the privacy screens to the rear terrace are identified to be a minimum of 1.7 metres high, which is sort of, your average garden fence is at 1.8. So those privacy screens are not going to provide direct views. You may get a small leaky, try over the top, but ultimately when you're using that terrace, you're not going to get direct views back towards those neighbouring properties. And then if I just wanted to just briefly show you something when it comes to overshadowing and sunlight daylight. So if you can see that image in 3D. So this image is orientated north-south. So obviously the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So where you'd have some built form over the roof there with an additional story, I think there's a very good chance at the very earliest part of the day that there might be some overshadowing of those properties there. But as you get out into sort of, into mid-morning and then into midday and further on, then those properties will be largely unaffected over and above what's already existing.
Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Just quickly, the roof terrace takes up about a third of the existing roof. Is that fixed? It can't ever get bigger than that?
Yeah, the plans be conditions, so they have to do it in accordance with the plans, and there also are other conditions that would be attached to it, stating that any other area of the flat roof that's been created, that couldn't be used for any of the amenity space. So if for whatever reason it was erected in the wrong place or they started trying to encroach on that area, we would get the enforcement team involved in respect to it. So there's two conditions on it. Yeah, and that it would have to be brought into use. Before that roof terrace was really used, obviously those privacy screens would have to be in place, and they're going to be opaque as well.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a little bit confusing, the documents that we're looking at. So when looking at the existing and proposed sections, I can see the way that it's visualised there. We can see where the new floor is stepped back, and you can see the views down, and it doesn't look like it's encroaching too much, and I can see the pitch roof, but obviously the neighbours have got a concern for a reason. So then when I look at the proposed rear elevation, get it right, that drawing makes it seem like there's an awful lot more, but I suppose it's because there's roof lights in the pitch roof?
Yeah, there's roof lights in the pitch roof, and then...
Sorry?
So there's roof lights in the pitch roof at the top, so you can see those. So they're just going to be having the skyward views we were talking about, and then you have there looks like there's a lot going on because you have the pitch roof that's coming down, and then it translates into a flat roof, and then you're seeing the line, which is going to be the extent of the residential floor that's being created, and then you see another line being created where the privacy screening is going to be. So it looks quite complicated when you look at it on a flat design. I agree.
So you're telling us really to consider it more from the sections, sort of.
I think the sections give you a very good idea of what the articulation of the building, so the form that's actually proposed is, definitely.
Councillor Pickett.
Sorry, can I just go back to the flue? Is that going to be the same height as the chimneys next door? Sorry, I'm assuming that this building will not have chimneys added to it, because there won't be any need for them. But in the drawings there are chimneys. Yeah, so what height will the flue be? I'm just a bit confused as to how high it's going to be.
Useful, thank you. Yes, thank you, Councillor. The chimney that is on the building next door is actually being raised as part of the elevation. You'll see it on the rear elevation there. So you've got an existing chimney on the property next door, and then that's going to be raised as part of the application to make sure that it looks appropriate on the side of the building, because obviously to have a new side elevation with a chimney halfway up, it would seem a little bit odd. So that's getting raised up. And then the proposal is with the flue that it's going to be sitting below the ridge line of the proposed roof. Sorry. Yeah, so the new flue that is going to be, well, not the new flue, but where the flue is going to be extended up through the building, you can see it, I'm not sure you've got the floor plans there, but you can see it coming up through the building, and then it's on one of the roof plans. You can see where it's going to be located. No? Go to... Have you opened one up? Sorry. Oh. Yeah, you got it just there. Yeah, so the flue is going to be behind where the chimney is when you're looking at the rear elevation, and it's proposed. I haven't got a full section of exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to. At the moment, it's got a very small protrusion coming out the roof, and it's anticipated that will continue.
Sorry, will it be higher than the new chimneys of the building next door?
From the way that it's shown on the plans at the moment, it's going to be flush within the roof, but it may well be a question that Nick could be able to answer, Nick Strickland, who's the architect, because on all the plans that are shown at the moment, it would just be actually flushing with the roof.
Just as a point of clarification, yeah, if it's not shown on the proposed drawings, then it's not approved. So if they want to put a larger chimney up or a larger flue extending in a way that's not drawn on those drawings, then they don't have planning permission for it. So at the moment, our understanding is that the flue is flush with the roof tiles. They don't have any permission to put that any taller, but I don't know whether, Nick, can you offer any clarification on that?
Can you just come in on that and just clarify for us?
The flue would stand up a little bit, but it wouldn't be as high as the ridge of the roof, and it wouldn't be as high as the traditionally constructed chimneys of the neighbour, which are having to be extended up.
Okay, do we have any more questions for officers? No? Okay. In that case, can I start by thanking all the public speakers for their contributions today, and we'll now move to the public debate, debate. Who would like to get us going? Councillor Cattell.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was looking at the Daylight and Sunlight report, which is on the planning portal on the website, and it's a very scientific thing. I mean, it's either right or it isn't. That's the thing. It's an absolute thing. And looking at it, it does seem that, there's so little loss of, very, very minimal loss of light to some windows. And these guidance, British Building Research Establishment guidance, have been around for a very long time and are the kind of standard that we use to look at daylight and sunlight, as opposed to rights of light, which is a different thing in law. So I don't, and also the thing is about the balcony. It's quite hard. I mean, you'd have to be really, really keen to want to peer into your neighbour's windows to actually see anything from that balcony. It's just the way the science works. The other thing is, if you look at one of the best things about North Lane for me is the variegation of the roofscape. I mean, it's great, and that is one of its key things. I don't know if it's in the conservation area statement, but it's certainly something that is a key part of the view of the views of North Lane, and putting back a sort of half decent shop front here and footprint and so on, I think is a benefit. So I'll be voting for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nan.
Kind of just following on from Julie there, like when you look at the pictures of this, that just from above, that building is a blot on the landscape and it does spoil what's a really interesting sort of roofscape. And when you look at the plans, it feels like a restoration rather than a development. So I kind of feel really quite positively about it, regardless of any other considerations, and we'll be voting for it.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
I wonder if I can ask one more question. Is that allowed?
Is it a question that one of us could answer?
I just wondered, in terms of the other buildings that are 3 stories, were they built like that as originally, or were they added to at a later stage?
There's something I was going to mention when I was kind of summing up, but on 6.3 in the papers, it mentions that part of the conservation area charter for North Lanes mentions the fact that both Sydney Street and the wider conservation area are 2 to 3 stories as a protected characteristic. Do you want to jump in with anything else, or does that? No, don't have to. No. Anyone else want to contribute to the debate? Councillor Theobald.
Yeah, actually, initially I was rather torn with this because I thought the 3 stories look out of place, but unfortunately it's already set a precedent in that street of having several others there. And I was pleased when they said that the rear would be pushed back further, so, you know, that sort of satisfies me a bit. The Heritage seems to be very happy with this, and it'd be nice to have those features back, especially the shopfront features. So perhaps there is some benefit in this, but I do feel sorry in case it does upset the people in Tidy Street, whether it will affect them or not. But you think it might not very much, or it won't. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pickett.
I was just going to say, yeah, the current building is pretty ugly, and I don't think I'd want to look out on that. However, I can understand the residents behind not particularly wanting to look out on a building if they don't, that's blocking their view if it doesn't already block their view, even if it does look better than the one that's already there. But the notes do say that there is a high degree of mutual overlooking already in that area, so therefore I think I will be voting for this.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think on the basis of the comments from Heritage, the conversations we've been having, or discussions, sorry, about the sunlight and what effect that would have on the back of Tidy Street, I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I'll be voting for it too. We're weighing up sort of everything. It's going to be a vast improvement on what's there already. And there is already a precedent, as Councillor Pickett's established. There are natural 3-storey buildings in that road already from when the road was originally built. So basically all the conditions for turning it down has been eliminated. But I am sorry for the person in Tidy Street if their view really is obstructed. But I think the greater good says we should let this through. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, in that case, I'll just kind of tie up. As I've already said, it is mentioned within the Conservation Area Charter that it is natural to have 2- and 3-storey buildings in the area, so we're not stepping outside the realms of the conservation area. And as has already been mentioned, even looking at it from street level, you can tell from some of the images we've already seen that there is a notable gap in the roof front. So even from street view, you could probably tell the difference. And as everyone's already said, I can understand it's a bitter pill to take if you live on Tidy Street and what is currently a flat roof you can see over is now going to obstruct your view. But we can't hold back the conservation area for the sake of 2 to 3 houses, especially in such a heavy footfall part of the city. So on that basis, I think this does meet the test that this actually adds to the conservation area, and now I will therefore be supporting it. So if no one else wishes to jump in on debate, I shall move to the vote. Can I please see all those in favour of this application?
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimously agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all the public speakers who came on this item. I'm going to look, does the committee want to move straight on to the next application, or do you want another 2-minute break? I'm seeing nods, so let's move straight on. Next application, BH 2025-01792. I'll just give a second for officers to change over. Unfortunately, they are not able to teleport into their seats just yet. Technology is being developed to help. Thank you. Take away. We will now have the officer presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application is for the first floor and second floor flat of number 7 St John's Place. It's a Grade 2 listed building at the top of First Avenue. And let me just take to the next slide. The works are for external and internal alterations. So it includes new fenestration, a new entrance door, repairs and restoration to the brickwork, new slate roof tiles, refurbishment of the existing flat roof dormer with a recessed internal roof terrace. This is a map of the application site. Where that red dotted is actually the building to the right. And if I just take you to the next slide, you can see it more clearly there. It's part of a mews that was originally used as service accommodation for the grander townhouses in this area. It is part of the Avenues Conservation Area. You can see here the front elevation of the building as existing. And this is a photo of the site at present. I'd just like to point out that the left-hand white garage does not form part of this application. That part of the building is owned by someone else. The application relates to the ground floor, the first floor, and the dormer. So the other street photo is from First Avenue. That's probably the best view you can see of the dormer there at present. Another street elevation photo. And this is the view from the existing first floor windows. To the south, you can see that the building adjacent, number 54 First Avenue, appears to have some form of outdoor amenity space used on that flat roof there. And on the flat roof of that ground floor outrigger, there's some astroturf, so it looks as if there's some outdoor amenity spaces nearby. These are just internal photos from where the applicant has recently purchased the property to give you a good idea of the plan form and the existing historic features, which there isn't a lot of. So this is the existing first floor plans. You've got the ground floor, which is used for parking, and it takes you through upstairs to the first floor accommodation, which currently has a kitchen, 2 reception rooms, a bedroom with an ensuite, and then up to the first floor where there's 3 more habitable rooms and a bathroom. The proposed plans show removing the non-original door that's been fitted, reinstalling the stable doors that are a feature on the other dwellings within the mews, so the entrance will be through there, through up to the up through the new stairs that are being fitted, up to the first floor. The applicant is fitting a sauna downstairs for their personal use. On the first floor, you have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and then the communal living space is being relocated to the second floor with another ensuite. This is where the recessed terrace will be. This is the existing roof plan and proposed. The dormer is not being made any bigger. It's just being refurbished, new tiles, and you can see where it's being altered on the section in a moment. I'll show that to you. So this is the existing and proposed front elevation of the building. You can see, and from the site photos, the condition, and it's proposed that new windows will be going in that will be historic materials, white painted timber, slimline double glazed 12mm. And the brickwork will be made good, new slate tiles on the roof, and again, this is the front elevation showing the stable doors with the original entrance opened. And this is the existing and proposed rear elevation. You've got the recessed terrace with the dormer set back to create some outdoor amenity space for the occupiers. And this section shows, as existing at the moment, where that dormer is. The section will be removed so that that can be created as a small terrace area out from the living area. Concerns have been raised that the alterations would be harmful to the listed building, concerns of noise, structural integrity, drainage, loss of parking, and of its use as future use as an Airbnb, which we've talked about and covered in the officer's report.
Yes. Sorry, there's a telephone going off in the room.
Whoever's phone that is. Oh. I mean, it's a very musical intervention.
Okay.
Right, sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem. So we have got some recommended conditions. Obviously, it's a Grade 2 listed building, and the applicant has worked with our heritage team since pre-app and done a site visit. So we've asked for samples of materials for the new slate roof, brickwork, and for joinery sections of the new slimline glazing that will be timber framed. We have asked for details of the new rainwater goods, so that as there were some concerns that have been raised in representation of that discharging into the downstairs property, to make sure that that is settled, and also soundproofing of the party walls between number 6 and number 8 St John's Place, as the living area is being moved from the existing first floor up into the second floor area. On the layout to you, when you compare the existing plans, there's a slight change there. But overall, we do consider that the scheme includes a lot of heritage gains, removing some of the more harmful alterations that have happened to the building in the past. The windows that are there currently, and particularly on that front elevation, detract from its historic importance. The recessed design of the rear doormat and balcony will mitigate its view from the street scene, setting it back slightly, and overall feel that the improvements made to the Grade 2 listed building outweigh some of the other internal alterations to the plan form that can still be read. So we are minded to approve the listed building consent. In terms of impact to neighbouring amenity, we did a site visit, and with the recessed design of the dormer, do not consider that the views from that terrace balcony will be more than the existing view from the existing windows. That's a habitable room currently being used, and they are same view outward. There is a very tall building to the south that you'll see on the map that shows a lot of that view will be absorbed by that.
Thank you very much. We have two speakers on this item. The first is Bruce Warren, a local resident who should be joining us online. Bruce, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Amazing, thank you very much. Welcome to the Planning Committee. You will have 3 minutes to speak. The time will start when you start speaking. Take it away in your own time, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Bruce Warren. I live next door to the applicant's site, and I'm also speaking on behalf of the other neighbours who have objected to this application. We actually strongly support the restoration of this neglected listed building, but not in a way that harms neighbouring amenity. Our main remaining concern is the loss of amenity caused by the proposed roof level balcony. There is a 4-storey high brick wall approximately 7 metres to the immediate south of the proposed balcony. This means that sound reverberates like a whispering gallery. Even ordinary conversations carry clearly between properties. The balcony is over 6 metres wide. We're not talking about 1 or 2 people quietly stepping outside. This is a large space that will inevitably be used for social gatherings, with fully sliding doors opening up onto the lounge. This could particularly be bad if the property is later used for short-term letting. In normal situations, speech will disperse from a balcony. In this instance, because of the southern brick wall opposite, assuming a raised speech level of 65 dBA at the balcony, with a reduction estimated at 3 to 5 dBA due to propagation effects and the reflection of the flank brick wall, the resultant level outside our windows will be approximately 60 to 62 dBA. This will be perfectly audible and will result in a loss of amenity. The balcony also overlooks a garden flat to number 54 First Avenue. The planning officer stated that the balcony, quote, does not afford harmful views beyond existing windows. If that reasoning were accepted, any upper level window in the city could be turned into a balcony. That is not consistent with the council's normal approach, where roof terraces and balconies in close-knit urban settings are routinely refused because of overlooking loss of privacy and noise. Allowing this balcony could create an unfortunate and far-reaching planning precedent. The planning reports suggest that the balcony has been allowed due to other improvements to the listed building. The poor maintenance of the building should not become a reason to omit harmful alterations. When the property was recently purchased, its listed status and conditions were well known and the price reflected this. Neglect should never be rewarded with greater planning flexibility. Policy QD27 requires the development not to harm the amenity of existing residents. This proposal clearly fails that test. Thank you for listening and for considering the genuine impacts this proposal will have on our local residents. One further thing I want to point out is Charlotte mentioned that the flat roofs to the rear are external media space. There's planning conditions on those stopping them being used as external media space for the very reason we're trying to stop this. I would, however, like to commend Charlotte on the very professional engagement.
I'm really sorry to cut you off, but you have exceeded your 3-minute timeline.
Okay. I'm just going to commend Charlotte as well then.
Yeah. Thank you. I will now go to the online agent who we have, Megan Smith. Megan, are you there?
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Same again for you. You have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair and members. As stated by your heritage and planning officers, this building has suffered from unsympathetic alterations over time, including loss of original windows, construction of modern dormers out of context with the avenue's conservation area, and overall poor quality finishes. This means the property currently substantially detracts from the overall heritage value of the group listing and the avenue's conservation area. Our proposal seeks to reverse that harm with significant reinvestment. The applicant will reinstate traditional SAS windows, original openings, natural slate roofing, and period detailing. Together, these works will restore architectural integrity and enhance the appearance and significance of both the group listing and the wider conservation area. Turning to amenity, the proposals have been carefully designed to minimise any impacts to neighbours. The new recessed roof terrace replaces an existing full-width dormer that already includes rear-facing windows. By setting the terrace back into the roof structure and enclosing it within solid parapets, views are contained and opportunities for overlooking are reduced. The use of the terrace will be occasional and seasonal, far less intensive than the current habitable room within the dormer. Officers rightly concluded there would be no loss of privacy, overlooking, or noise disturbance within this built-up urban context. It is also important to note that no works extend onto third-party land, and all alterations are entirely within the applicant's ownership. In addition, the existing building is being enhanced with acoustic mitigation measures to not disturb neighbours, as well as sustainability enhancements. In the wider context, this development will transform one of the poorest quality units within the terrace, securing its long-term use and restoring coherence to an important heritage group within Hove. It aligns fully with local and national policy and is a heritage-led regeneration of the building. To summarise, this is a positive, well-considered and policy compliance scheme that delivers clear heritage gains and does not cause harm to neighbours. I respectfully ask members to support your officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any clarifications from officers on anything said? No? Okay, thank you. We will now turn to questions from the councillors. Councillor Cattell.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that one of the objections is about the loss of a parking space, but one of the things that, it is a fact that most garages that have been built over the last, 100 years will not even, barely fit a Fiesta in, let alone an SUV or one of those other big monsters. So I just wanted to clarify that the actual size of the garage and what is it used for now, Because I guess it's probably not used as a garage for a car.
So when I did the site visit, the garage at the moment, it's a vacant property. The applicants purchased it. I saw no evidence of a car being parked there. We have consulted with transport and they've confirmed that the loss of one parking would cause an issue with highways that couldn't be controlled by the CPZ that's in the area, and that there was adequate on-street parking available just outside the Mews on First Avenue.
Guessing it was probably a stable because it's a Mews, so that's probably what it was used before.
Yeah, its original use was a service accommodation for the townhouses in the Stamford estate, I believe. So that's the original use of the Mews. It's now main use. There are commercial elements on the ground floor and residential elements to the first and second.
Thank you. Councillor Nan.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Bruce's concern about noise, if that's okay. Bruce, are you still there?
Yep.
Hi,
Still
Bruce.
here.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying. Did you say that there was a wall 7 metres away, and that your concern was that the volume of normal conversation would bounce off that wall and arrive back where you are?
Yeah. In the Mews itself, if someone's standing in the Mews talking with our windows shut, we can hear them because the way it works like a whispering gallery, and that's within the Mews itself. This is on the balcony is proposed on the rear of the Mews, but opposite that balcony, there's a 4-storey high brick wall about 7 metres away, and the effect will be the same in terms of the reverberation time of sound. In a normal balcony, it will just disperse into the air, but it will be pinging back and pinging back. That's our concern.
Thanks, Bruce. And you quoted some decibel numbers there. Have you measured those, or is that an estimate?
It's an estimate. I'm actually an architect myself, and I've spoken to a colleague who's an acoustic engineer, and he said, that's an approximate sort of levels you'll be getting.
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Councillor Theobald.
Yeah, I just wondered if, because it was the noise, the neighbours are worried about noise, couldn't be any restriction of hours so that it's not late at night, that on this balcony.
Normally, hours of use would be in relation to businesses. This is for a C3 residential dwelling. I do understand the neighbours' concerns for noise. If it was in use as a C4 or HMO and an Airbnb, that would be something that we would be considering. But as a C3 residential dwelling, the scale of the terrace, recessed as proposed, we do not consider to have a detrimental impact in terms of noise to the neighbours.
Just to jump in additionally, so applying such a condition to a C3 unit, residential house, means that that kind of condition in terms of hours of use would just be unenforceable, because obviously it would require the LPA and the council to be incredibly onerous over looking at what happens on another property. Just to reiterate that we have got the condition that's requiring soundproofing to the party walls. I appreciate that might not address anything that Bruce has raised around sort of potential for sound to bounce back off, but there would of course always remain the Environmental Protection Act. So environmental services could, if a statutory noise nuisance were to exist, so if the residents were to use it in an unreasonable fashion, then there would still be a recourse for dealing with a noise nuisance.
Councillor Pickett.
Thanks. So can you clarify that there aren't any other balconies in use along where the proposed balcony is going to be put?
Sure, is that within the Mews? Yeah, there aren't any at the moment, no. Do you want me to show you the roof plan again of the Mews itself?
I am looking at it on page 84, is that the one you mean?
Just very quickly, so I'd like to say there's no other balconies on on that news, but there are areas where a ground floor extends out above the second floor, and that roof is then being used as a outdoor amenity space.
Sorry, Jeff, bear with me. I'll just show you the photos that I took on my site visit. So,
What's the photo?
sorry. That one?
Yeah.
So at present, this is to the south. This is number 54, First Avenue, and you can see there are plant pots and a washing line that is clearly, well, not clearly, sorry, that it could be being used as outdoor amenity space by the occupiers. And you can see on the flat roof of the ground floor extension, there's AstroTurf there, so that's being used as some form of outdoor amenity space, potentially.
I've just had a brief look, and I can't see that there is planning history for these terraces, so I'm unaware of the lawful nature of their use. They're clearly in some sort of a use, and these photos are taken from the property because you can see that. In terms of the lawful planning status, I wouldn't want to sit here and confirm that they are being lawfully used for that manner, or that they are being used for that manner, because we just don't know, but obviously the photos do speak for themselves to some degree.
But we've not, as a planning department, received any complaints about these being used and any noise complaints from that. Do we know?
I can do a very quick check of the enforcement situation right now, but I'll come back to you in the app.
Whilst I do that, I'll turn to Councillor Robinson quickly.
Thank you, Chair. I live in the local area, and the news on the other side of First Avenue, so between First and Second, I know of at least one balcony that's on the south-facing side, because I can picture the screen, so kind of looking over Hove Place. So yeah, balconies do exist in this area. A question also for officers. Is it not the case that with new properties, for example, we encourage outdoor amenity, don't we? So how does that kind of fit with the concern that this is going to lead to balconies popping up or roof terraces popping up all over the place in older buildings? Thank you.
So, first of all, I have found that we have had enforcement cases around the use of the terrace that you can see on your screen. So I don't believe that that is in use as a lawful terrace, if at all. That said, obviously we're assessing the application that we're assessing. So when you raise sort of an issue over that we do like to provide amenity space in dwellings, yes we do, but that does also usually relate to when new dwellings are created. So where we've got a new unit, then yes, if it has an element of outside space, then obviously that weighs in favour. In terms of the conversion of other buildings, and the way we sort of apply roof terraces around the city, yes, we do refuse them where they cause direct overlooking. I think in this situation, as you can see on the screen, that the closest habitable windows are some considerable distance, so there is no direct overlooking in this situation. We've also had appeal inspectors' decisions that have said to us, well, ultimately, if it's a first floor terrace or it's at the ground floor, really it's down to the behaviour of the users as to whether they are harmful or not. But clearly, we do want to we do pay some attention to their siting. But ultimately, most of the refusals that we've issued have been around where, they're sort of in an unusual position or whether they cause direct overlooking.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay. In that case, let us move to debate. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. As I said, I know this is the area where I live. I know how dreadful that property currently looks. I can understand the residents' concerns. I live at the end of Second Avenue, and I've got the King's House building on Grand Avenue right behind me with loads of balconies. And so, of course, there can be noise, but residents have only been in there for a year. I don't think I was disturbed once, but we also have to consider noise coming from people's gardens. People are out in a built-up area. Noise reverberates all over the place. So I can understand you being concerned about it, Bruce, but probably when it actually comes to fruition, the noise, you won't be disturbed. Hopefully not at all. And let's face it, they're your neighbours, so I think it's perhaps an opportunity to work with each other if problems arise. But I think all of the benefits outweigh that potential, very, very possible, smallly possible, harm.
Thank you. Councillor Cattell.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'll be supporting this. I think that we as a nation are really kind of a bit uptight about overlooking. I mean, every major sort of tourist city you go to in Europe, your city, there's so many balconies and really lovely use of space where it's not a problem. I mean, I'm just guessing that. Well, I don't know how many other people have stayed in lovely buildings in sort of Paris and Rome and God knows where else. But I think, it's just a thing. And it's lovely to sit out on a balcony. And I don't think balconies are mainly used for sort of peeping into people's into windows and so on. And I think, yes, we need to stop being a bit so uptight about this. And I'm very happy to vote for this because I think it's a great, the improvements. Although I have to say that there will be some who would think that the current internal space and decoration is worth listing itself because there are people who do like that sort of 60s retro. Not me, but some do. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cattell, for that lecture from your youth. Councillor Theobald.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this is in very poor condition, and I think it will be a good refurbishment. And Heritage have said a significant heritage gain for this property. Well, perhaps this new neighbour, will invite the other neighbours along on their balcony for a drink. That's hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Pickett.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think, this application, they've worked really hard with the heritage officers. They've engaged with them from pre-application, asking their advice, and I think they've really tried with this application, so I think I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for debate? Yeah.
Just before councillors move to a vote, I just wanted to make sure that we do cover one verbal update, which is that we are removing a condition from the list of building consent and from the full planning permission. The condition related is itemized as condition 9, which required all existing architectural features internally to be retained. The applicant has requested that we review that, and we have reviewed that. So we are seeking to remove that condition from both consents. I just wanted to make sure you were clear on that before we move to the vote. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Anyone want to add anything to debate after hearing that? No? Okay. In that case, I'll put my own 2 pence in because why not? Just to say, I think it is a good idea. It's always good. I think we do need to encourage outdoor space. I think in an ideal world, on an ideal planning application, we would ask for something to be put on the edges of the balcony to just dampen noise spilling over, similar to how we would hope to use plants and greenery within a natural garden. But we have this application in front of us. I think an outdoor space is an advantage. We can see that nearby residents have been trying to get access to extra outdoor space where they can, and I think we shouldn't discourage people from going down the legal channels to do that. And where they should, I think we should encourage people to have access to outdoors so they can breathe some of the wonderful sea air that Brighton and Hove has. So I will be supporting this application. So if no one else wishes to contribute to debate, we shall move to the vote. Can I please see all hands in favour?
Chair, that's agreed unanimously. Thank you.
Vote for the FP.
Yeah.
That's for the planning application.
That's for the planning application. Right. We shall now move on to the listed building consent. All those in favour, please.
Again, Chair, agreed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I thank all these speakers for coming together on this item. Right, can we please move on to the next item, which is item E. Is that you again? Yeah. Amazing. So next item, BH 2025-01442. I will now hand over for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this application is for 22A Wilbury Crescent, BH 2025-01442. So the application is for alterations to the roof, so fitment of a flat roofed rear dormer and fitment of 2 Velux roof lights to the front roof slope with new fenestration at the rear. This is a map of the application site. It is situated on the north side of Wilbury Crescent. It is subdivided. It relates to the first floor flat. This is the location plan. Area of the site, so you can see the wider area. And this is the house that has been subdivided, and again it's the first floor flat. And this is a picture of the rear elevations of Wilbury Crescent. You can see that there is a presence of flat roof dormers to the east of the site, west of the site, and actually on the front elevation of Wilbury Crescent, this is the only house that doesn't have roof lights. This is my street scene photo of the building as existing. This is from the ground floor residence garden to the rear elevation of the building. This is the existing and proposed. That's the existing floor plan and roof plan. So at the moment, it is a 2-bedroom flat on 1 floor. And this is the proposed roof plan. That's the flat roof rear dormer. And that is the first floor and loft plan. So it will be converting from a 2-bed flat on 1 story to a 3-bed flat over 2 stories. There's the existing elevations, front, rear and sides. It's the proposed front, rear and side elevations so that you can see the scale of the dormer. That's the section. We have received concerns from local residents that the proposed alterations will result in overlooking, loss of privacy and be overbearing to their amenity. Concerns have been raised about noise. It could impact on parking and result in overdevelopment of the site. Concerns of overshadowing and loss of property value have also been raised. These have been taken into consideration within our assessment and my officer's report. We do consider that the development, given the street scene and context of the rear elevations, would not warrant refusal. There are other dormers present and it has been reduced in scale since its initial application that did contain some more harmful elements. A first floor Juliet balcony was originally proposed and that's been removed. That is no longer there. The dormer will just have 2 windows fitted. If the dwelling was as a normal house and wasn't subdivided, a dormer of this scale could be permitted for development rights under Class B. So that has been a consideration of ours in weighing the impact. The standard accommodation provided meets the floor space standards and is suitable for the current occupiers. We have assessed the impact on the neighbours' amenity in terms of privacy and overshadowing and overlooking, and within the office report concluded that the impact would not warrant refusal. The level of overlooking to the neighbours to the north of the site would be the same as the existing fenestration as the existing first floor glazing. In the planning balance, it would not cause harm that would warrant refusal, so we have recommended the scheme for approval.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers for this item. The first, I have the ward councillor, Jackie O'Quinn. Jackie, are you with us? No.
Just to let you know that Councillor Quinn has sent a speech because they're unable to make the meeting due to appointment. So if you're happy, I'll read out the speech.
Yes, please. We'd like to welcome Sean to Planning Committee. You have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Thank you. I wish to object in the strongest possible terms to the proposed development of number 22A Wilbury Crescent into a 3-bedroom, potentially 4-bedroom flat with a large dormer at the rear. I'm objecting on behalf of residents, and in particularly on behalf of the residents on the ground floor of number 22 who are unable to put in an objection due to a serious illness requiring hospitalisation. The application has caused them immense stress on top of their already stressful situation. I understand that the property was purchased by a builder in a probate sale, ostensibly for his daughter, but neighbours have been informed that she no longer proposes to live there and indeed has never lived in the property, and the property will be either rented, potentially an HMO, or sold. The proposal has been amended several times in order to ensure that the application will be granted at the Planning Committee. There is no longer a Juliet balcony and French doors in the rear sitting room, which would have overlooked neighbouring back gardens to the rear, side and rear, thus not according with planning policy DM20. This has allayed some concerns residents have put, but the main objection is that there is still a large dormer, despite amendments, which will overlook neighbouring properties, thus affecting their private amenity. It is stated in the report that there are similarly scaled dormers at present in the rear roof slopes east of the site and in the wider area. This is absolutely not the case, as there is simply one similar sized dormer at number 24, but there are no others of that size in the area. The houses along Bigwood Avenue and Wilbury Crescent predominantly have Velux windows on any loft extensions, and the vast majority of these properties are not flats. The report states several times, as in 9.7, that the property if the property were a house, the development would come under permitted development. But the whole point is that this planning application is for a flat, not a house, and I emphasise that point. The windows in the dormer would overlook the properties in the rear, and this would affect number 7, Bigwood Avenue, as it would look straight into their garden and their daughter's bedroom, thereby not according with policy DM20 and their private amenity. All the residents I have spoken to have said that if the dormer were replaced with Velux windows, then they would not object, especially as the loft is very large and not essential to having a dormer. I also find it quite extraordinary that the proposed 4th bedroom is not now to be a study and a condition put in place that can't be used as a bedroom, a totally unenforceable condition. I ask that this application not be granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now turn to the applicant who should be joining us, who is Sophie Wolfe. Sophie, are you with us? They are not with us. There we go. Have they left you a speech to read again, Sean, or are we good to carry on?
I have tried to contact the applicant on a number of occasions, including again today. I have even sent them an invite, but I have received no responses. So I'm afraid not.
Well, that is a shame. Right, in that case, are there any clarifications officers wish to provide following that speech?
Hi, yes. One of the comments from the councillor is that there were no... Do you want me to show that? I'd just like to show the rear elevations of Wilbury Crescent to show you the dormers that are present at the moment. So this is our site here. So if we go down to these houses, there are dormers present here, further up here. And these are the dwellings to the north of the site. There's a smaller dormer there. And obviously there are concerns in relation to privacy to the residents here, which are separated by the rear gardens of the site as well. So we have taken that into consideration.
Thank you. Questions from councillors. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Officer. Looking at the photograph of the rear elevation, do you want to bring that up? I don't really see what the concern is with overlooking and stuff, because you've got that extension. Well, pop it up to show others, please. Yeah, where is that one? Yeah, so if the dormer's going to be in that roof, what's the problem? You've got the extension down. Am I missing?
So the concern is that there's currently no windows in that loft space at the moment, so the local residents are concerned that the new windows within that loft space that are the same proportions as the first floor glazing will result in a loss of amenity, but we consider that they're the same view as the existing first floor windows.
Are there any other questions? Just very, very quickly from me, on the proposed first floor plan that we've been given, they have just next to the staircase a study. Can we just have that is written in big bold letters that under no circumstances would be big enough to be classed as a bedroom, especially if they went for an HMO application further down the line?
Yes, we have conditioned the layout of the dwelling, so it will be for a C3, a 3-bedroom flat, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that just so I have it clear in my head that I mean they could use it as a bedroom, but that study there cannot be used as, should not be advertised as a bedroom, so they couldn't go on to advertise this as a 4-bedroom property.
It doesn't meet the space standard requirements, which is why we explained to the applicants it can't be used as a habitable space. So the conversion is only as a 3-bed.
Yeah, good, thank you. That's the bit I wanted clarified. Right, in that case, if there's no more questions, we'll move on to debate. Does anybody want to kick us off? Councillor Cattell.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be interested to see how you could actually enforce that condition about the study, but anyway, hey-ho. I think the bottom line is here that if this was a single dwelling house instead of a maisonette or 2 flats, this would be permitted development. And I don't know whether the bigger dormer that it first came in would have also been PD, but you know, and I think that's the base where I'd be coming from on this. It would have been PD. So it's just because of the way the PD rules are written. The other thing is I can't see any reason for the objection from Jackie about the person, it being bought by a builder for his daughter, and now his daughter's not going to live there. It's irrelevant, and I don't, we can't make a planning decision on that. So I'll be voting for it because it's creating a nice unit of accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to jump in there? Councillor Theobald.
When I looked at the plans of the other houses, there seems to be lots of dormers and relaxed roof windows, roof lights. So I don't see how you can sort of turn this down, really, because the others have got it. I know the others might be houses and not jointed flats, but I don't see what difference it makes, really.
Thank you. Councillor Earthy.
Yes, I agree with both the previous speakers. I mean, it's just not out of keeping with anything around that. It's just had to be happenstance that it's a flat rather than a PD on a house. So I'll be voting for it. Nothing wrong at all.
Thank you. Anyone else? So yeah, I think it's safe to say everyone who has spoken, we're all largely in agreement that development is rather minor, that the background of the development is irrelevant to judging the application by its merits, and that on the whole, it's a rather nice development and won't stick out in the local area. Does that sum up kind of how everyone feels? Amazing. In that case, if no one else wishes to contribute to debate, we can move straight to the vote. Can I please see a hand for all those in favour?
Again, that's agreed by you unanimously. Thank you very much, Chair.
Aren't we all an agreeable bunch this evening? Yeah, so just before we all go, first of all, as always, a list of new planning application appeals lodged with the Planning Inspectorate is attached to the back of the agenda. There is no informal hearings or public inquiries listed as on this agenda, and a list of planning application appeal decisions from the Planning Inspectorate are attached to this agenda as well. Please can members also note that just behind Councillor Theobald over there, we have a series of extra information relating to a community centre on Elm Grove that has been requested from a previous planning committee. So those who are interested, please feel free to take some of the leaflets that have been left beside for us. And with that, you may all go home. Thank you very much for coming, everyone.